Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get them inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me, as always, is my co-host celebrating his 111th birthday. It's Jay Ledbetter.
Ryan, I'm doing something today I don't normally do. I'm associating with the nerds. I'm doing it. We're here. I'm about to shove some people into some lockers. I'm about to give some people some swirlies. It's time to talk Lord of the Rings. It's here. This is
real Biff energy today.
I mean, I just want right off the bat. I think it is pretty objective to say that Star Wars is probably the most important franchise in movie history. Can we just all is that?
I would say that or Bond.
Bond was my thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is Lord of the Rings?
For the modern era?
3?
Modern era, probably 3. Yeah. Well, Harry Potter's pretty big. I know
I think of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings as kind of
they kind of
hand in ways.
Well, I kind of honestly even throw in a little bit of Twilight in there, because Twilight came in the back half of Harry Potter, and the front half was Lord of the Rings through their kind of time. So honestly, I really just think it's Potter.
I think Potter influenced shared universe thinking, and they invented the 2-part finale, I think. Mm-hmm. And then Lord of the Rings, epic high fantasy, making movies in quick succession. And those two influences combined have got us to where we are today.
And that's what birthed the MCU.
Correct.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. But I would say
thank God.
And thank God, because what else would Jay talk about on a weekly basis outside of these films that we cover? No, I would say that, well, one, I'm just glad we're here. It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to do this series. Well, no, we've been trying to get you to sit down and rewatch these movies. I've known you for 8 years, close to a decade.
Definitely haven't watched them in that time.
Nope, I know you haven't, and I've been trying and trying and trying and trying. I've even sent you, or you sent me, local screenings in your art house theater of these movies, and you're like, yeah, it's just not going to work out. I got plans.
I'm telling you, they were showing the extended versions on 35 this fall, and every weekend I was traveling. It sucked.
See,
I wanted to watch them so
sounds
bad.
pretty convenient.
Yeah.
Sounds like some excuses there. But we finally got you here, Jay. We're here to talk about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm so excited to be here, not just with you, Jay, but with one of our great guests from the past, one of our fellow writers on the website, also a big Lord of the Rings fan. I know he is, because you did a piece last year, right, Cody? If I'm not mistaken, for another website, you didn't you write about Lord of the Rings, or
I reviewed Return of the King.
Yeah, and it was like
that's all I've done.
I thought you did a bigger piece on it, or but
maybe you're thinking of the fact that I got a Lord of the Rings tattoo last year. Is that
maybe there was that? There was a lot of
there was like an article.
It's kind of like an article. Anyway, Cody Dericks is with us today to talk about that, and I remember reading that, and it felt very personal, Cody, when you were writing that. And for anybody that gets to write about Lord of the Rings and their anniversaries over the last couple of years, you get to put a lot of personal stuff in here.
Excuse me. He also reviewed
yes,
The War of the Rohirrim.
That's right.
Forgot about that.
That's what else I was thinking of too. Yes, he did the animated.
Yeah.
What did we think of that?
And it got a resounding C+.
I mean, the studio was pretty blatant in being like, this is just so we can hold on to the copyright, which I admire. We've seen plenty of movies do that, and usually they don't just say that, but also usually they don't take the swing of being like, this is an anime adaptation of a prologue that doesn't exist.
Well,
it seems very thought through when you read about it and see the trailer and stuff.
Yeah, it's just very boring, very sleepy.
I never saw it.
Did they really need to hang on to the rights? They don't just have that, or are they fighting with Amazon to make sure they keep it?
Oh, I didn't think of Amazon.
Yeah, because Amazon's got the TV.
Well, it's like how they make
right?
the Terminator movie every 5 years, and they're like, I don't know, crap one of these out again. We got to keep the rights.
Yeah. Well, and then Big Jim's like, this is the one. This is they put a gun off camera to James Cameron's head and be like, "You tell everyone to go see this Terminator movie from your bunker."
But what's inside the barrel? A check for $1.5 million.
He's like, "I'll take it. I'm just going to put it right into Navi technology for the Avatar movie. Yeah, in submarines or to help Kate Winslet's performance in the third one. Who knows? We're here to talk about Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. I'm super excited. It's going to be talking about maybe the most important trilogy of at least the last 25 years of the century. We've been doing a lot of best of the stuff on the of the century so far on the website, and this podcast is dropping right at a great time mid-year to talk about that. Cody, I'm going to kick it over to you to start, and I want to ask you about your relationship before we get to Lord of the Rings with Peter Jackson as a director, and outside of Lord of the Rings, his other films, his filmography, and what you think of him as a director.
So I'm sure like 85% of audiences, this was my first Peter Jackson film. Because what was the biggest film? The Frighteners, I'm guessing, is probably his biggest in terms of general.
Probably so.
Heavenly Creatures has gotten an Oscar nomination.
Yeah. But I think this is definitely the first time that most viewers had heard of him, which is, we can talk about this later, but I think kind of one of the many strokes of genius that at the time probably felt like a folly was hiring him. To do not just Lord of the Rings, but to do them in the way they did, which turned out to be obviously a wise choice. But I saw this in theaters as a child. I was about 10, I think. And I remember specifically because I was a big nerd. I don't know why I put that in the past tense. I wanted to read the books before I saw the movies. So I remember frantically reading Fellowship of the Ring while it was in theaters to try to see it while it was still in theaters. And I was able to still see it in theaters months later. I have a specific memory of sneaking in my Easter candy, which means that I saw this because I looked it up. Easter 2002 was, I think, the very end of March. So that meant it was still in theaters over 3 months later. And this is a big theater. And that's after the Oscars. And that just speaks to not only just how film distribution has changed over the years, but just how big this movie was. And it kind of just blew me away immediately. I mean, I was hooked right away. I am one of those annoying people that considers these one film, the whole trilogy, but nothing will beat the rush of waiting year after year after year to see the next one, which was new. That was a new experience at this time. We didn't have Marvel movies every 9 to 14 months like we do now, or other franchises. And Peter Jackson as a director, I do think, you know, even he is probably aware that this is going to be his tombstone obituary movie, which, I mean, directors would be so lucky to have something half as good as even one of these films on their roster. But I would say I still hold out hope for him to have a kind of grand return to something like this, but I don't think he's even interested in it. It seems like he's almost self-retired.
I don't think he wants to make features anymore.
No, I mean, the last thing he made was that World War I documentary. Am I correct?
Yeah, and he's been with the Beatles for
the Beatles
ever since, and I think he's like producing that new Gollum movie that they're doing, but it feels like, again,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
which again is just like filling in the filler from the beginning of this movie about like what Gollum went through in the caves. Like, nobody fucking wants to see that stuff. Like, nobody really wanted to see.
He pointedly did nothing. Movie. Like, that's the whole point. He basically.
But that one's being directed by Circus. Is that right?
I think so. I think
it's just an olive branch to his buddy.
I think so. Well, he's also just like,
he loves the world too.
He can't. That world it's a lot. It means so much to him. They built that. I mean, it is still a tourist attraction. You can go to these sets. You can see these things. It is literally within like the country's tourism, for people to come and see it every single year. And that's that can be great if you nail it and the movies are loved, or it could be like Popeye and just a thing that exists and people are like, yeah, it's like around, you know what I mean? But anyway,
I
sorry,
do
Cody.
think the location is the secret key to this film.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about it. I was rewatching it this time. I almost cried seeing a fantasy film where the sun is allowed to touch the actors'
I
faces.
was I was gonna say like natural light.
My God. Like breezes felt those costumes. You don't, that doesn't happen anymore. That's amazing. Anyway, Peter Jackson. I I still he's one of because he's so locked into my kind of fomented young cinephile upbringing. I do root for the guy. I understand why he probably is shifting away from narrative films because, varying degrees of success, and I do think the Hobbit experience probably just destroyed him, understandably. So I would not be, if I were him, I would probably do the same thing he's doing now and just kind of make my own, you know, the director equivalent of a dad who decides to get into like model trains in the basement. It's like, I'm doing this. This is for me. This is on my own time. Let me do it. But I think this is such an achievement that it's almost one of those cases where he put so much into these films that based on everything that came after it, where I don't think had limitations, which is a problem sometimes, and B, I think he may have kind of expelled as much creativity as possible onto these films where, I like King Kong, but I think everything after this has been kind of just diminishing returns because these films are such a high watermark and it's not only hard to make something this good, but to live up to something this good.
When you strike gold in your career, it is so hard for people's expectations for you to hit that again. And, Cody, going into the series, I was telling Jay and our other guests, I was like, it feels very much the thing that George Lucas has to face. I feel like for Coppola, a little bit with The Godfather at times, like people have this, obviously Coppola has other films, but his run in the 70s is revered as the run of anyone in anyone's, filmography, or certain films from directors where they're like, I saw that film. No other movie has ever come close ever since. And it feels like it might have got to him. Like, I mean, and it's different now because obviously media and audiences are completely different than in the 2000s, 10 years, 20 years apart. But this is also the biggest gamble it's one of the biggest gambles in the last 25 years. The idea of because it started out as just a movie and then two movies, and then it branched out into three, and making three movies at all about this unimaginable, unadaptable property, because they tried for so many years to do it. So many people have wanted to do it. I'm sure Jay's got all the research and we'll talk about it in depthly, but it is remarkable that there are coherent stories on the screen, and that they have and then it's not even just that they were made and they were coherent, then they became a franchise and an entity that is one of the most popular trilogies of all time. And in doing that, I do think that that puts a massive target. And I think even for our generation, you're putting this of like everybody is seeing these movies. There's not a single person that isn't seeing them on the planet. And so when these films are essentially raising people, expectations are astronomically high. But there's also, like you're saying, Cody, there is the sentiment of like, I would love to see him go back to this sort of magical time where he was making the most unaccessible thing accessible, but it also does feel like it's just magic within a time. And he was just at the right place at the right time with the right material and knew how to tell that story. And yeah, but we get to talk about why that works and maybe why it doesn't, or some aspects do, or some aspects don't. Jay,
Yeah.
you've been reading the books. about this.
Yeah,
There's
a little
no way.
bit.
There's no way. I think honestly, Jay, we've done so many series over our times as podcasters. There's no other, maybe outside of like The Godfather and Mad Max Fury Road, and obviously in the Elaine May series, we covered a lot of the behind the scenes things there. But this is when you read up on Lord of the Rings and these movies getting made, Jay. This is.
Hmm.
I do feel like one day we're gonna see a mini series or a movie or something about how these things were freaking made, because it is a tale.
It is.
This is a journey just to get these movies made, right, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And you kind of talked about this idea of them being unadaptable and these towering works that people were desperate to try and make. I mean, it goes back to Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Walt Disney wanted to make a Hobbit movie. And it seems like everybody early on just wanted to do The Hobbit, I guess, because that one at least is like, yeah, it's a little thinner than the other ones.
It's a
It's
little bit more
a little
accessible.
lighter, more accessible. Yeah.
That's the book
Um,
that everybody gets on their assigned reading when you're in high school too. You're like, you
yeah.
can read The
Yeah.
Hobbit, and everybody picks it, and it's like,
We're not
sold.
going to
I'll
give
read
you
that.
3 books.
Yeah, we're not going to give you Lord of the Rings. We're not going to give you all of that. We're just going to give you The Hobbit, and you can read that one.
Yeah, but then, Walt Disney obviously didn't make it over time. It went on to some other people. The weirdest one that was ever considered, you know about the Beatles one?
I know about the Beatles, but if you want to tell everybody, Jay, about the
I mean, it
Beatles.
rules. It sounds like maybe the greatest movie ever made. How about a Lord of the Rings multimedia musical extravaganza starring the Beatles, directed by the short list, based on it, my understanding, nothing was it'll be one of these three guys, I promise. David Lean, Stanley Kubrick, and Michelangelo Antonini. So,
I think
whatever,
David
excuse
Lean.
me, Antonioni.
Yeah,
Um,
Antonioni.
but it
Antonioni
obviously,
would have been wild, by the way. I'm just going to
yeah,
put
I
that.
mean, it's
That's the one that probably doesn't make the most sense, but I would
I,
have paid to see it.
Kubrick called the books unfilmable,
Mm-hmm.
and that's Stanley Kubrick saying
Yeah.
that, who directed adaptations of some
Pretty crazy books.
maybe unfilmable books. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So this was a work that had kind of been in the ether for a while. There had been people like George Lucas had been rumored to maybe been thinking about it. Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott, all kinds of different people had been sort of festering, thinking about maybe trying to make this film. And obviously, the one that was made was the animated Rankin Bass Hobbit animated movie, which I actually haven't seen. Have y'all seen that? I haven't watched it.
Cody, have you?
When I was a kid.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't seen it in a
Yeah.
long time. Because honestly, when these came out, there was no reason to ever watch that stuff ever again.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah,
Pretty
this is absolutely the definitive work. And the interesting thing about Peter Jackson doing this, he wasn't like a Lord of the Rings nut
No.
at all.
And he didn't want to do this. This wasn't his first thing that he wanted to do.
Well, no, I mean, we talked about it a little bit on the Frighteners episode. After the Frighteners, he essentially, or at least while the Frighteners was going on, and he had all the momentum in the world, and he was like, oh, he's got Weta. He's, this guy's a real up and comer. This is the next guy. He had in front of him the option to do King Kong, Planet of the Apes, or Lord of the Rings. And he picked King Kong. But then when the Frighteners didn't do very well, they took the offer off the table, and it got held up. And he, you're not gonna. This might seem a little out of character for this particular person, but Harvey Weinstein made this process a little difficult.
Wait, what are you talking about, Jay?
See, Harvey Weinstein had the rights to the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, and Harvey Weinstein worked with Peter Jackson on Heavenly Creatures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got, pulled his Weinstein magic, got an Oscar nomination for that film. But it became clear, and really what Jackson wanted to do was he was like, I want to make an original fantasy movie. That is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so he started writing these scripts, and his partner in both life and art, Fran Walsh, anytime he would come up with an idea, would just say, that's Lord of the Rings. What do you mean? Like, I just thought of that. No, that's Lord of the Rings. Like, that's not something you thought of. That's Lord of the Rings. And so eventually they just decided, I guess we just have to do Lord of the Rings because it is everything that we think we want to make. And it became clear eventually, though, that Miramax just didn't have the budget to make the movies. They didn't have the money to do it. And Harvey Weinstein essentially said, okay, if we can't make it, then nobody's going to make it.
Yeah.
And so after some, arm turning and probably a lot of money exchanging and I'm sure some
tense conversations. Yeah.
Tense conversations and lots of threats of violence.
Yeah.
Very
unlike Harvey, right, Jay?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine what some of those conversations were like. I mean, from the stuff I've read, it really was like Harvey was an absolute monster, which we know for at far outside of any of this, but to Peter Jackson, he was just like cruel. And
well, this is the man that was an absolute giant piece of shit to Martin Scorsese when Games of New York came out and was making that, wanted to cut it.
I think there are many stories of him being not an awesome guy.
No, well, I mean, I'm talking about beyond obviously everything that came out.
Well, no, I mean him trying to cut the Miyazaki movies when they were released in America.
Like he is
all that stuff.
For a guy that it's like wants to make all these movies and get so many people some Oscars, you can truly see that he actually really doesn't give a shit about and doesn't know how movies are made. The only guy he really left alone was Tarantino, and Tarantino got basically whatever he wanted.
Who he said, like, if you're not going to do this with me, then I'll get Tarantino to do it with me. Imagine Quentin Tarantino's Lord of the Rings. How about that?
I could. Who would Sam Jackson play?
Gimli.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Galadriel. that opening prologue in his voice, pretty good.
That would be good.
God, that would be. Well, he is a wonderful narrator of things. So yeah, I was watching Inglourious Bastards recently. And I was like, he's just the narrator in this. Yeah. Oh my God. Now I've got to think about that all day. Anyway, continue, Jay. Sorry.
No, I mean that's kind of how the project came to be, and then they came up with this insane idea of filming them so close together. And
well, it was originally going to be 2 films, and Weinstein
going to be 2.
Yeah. And
then, the original plan was 3, 1 Hobbit and 2 other ones. And then they said, no, let's just do 2. And then eventually, I guess, New Line just said, do the trilogy.
Yeah, well, it was, like Weinstein was very much like, he actually just wanted 1. And then they were writing so much.
Compress it, because they couldn't pay for the trilogy.
They couldn't pay for it. But they were writing so much, and they were getting very detailed. And it got on hold, but then the new head of New Line looked at this and really championed them, and he had to basically not film, but he had to storyboard and present this, like, sections of the film to the studio to not only just get it made, but then to justify the vision.
Yeah, there was a mini preview at Cannes, I believe.
Exactly.
And after that, he asked for more money, and they were like, Jesus, okay.
Yeah, you can have whatever you want.
Us. Yeah.
They were still filming these things even after the first and second one came out. Like these things were shot for like 4 or 5 years, even up to like, because like most people just think that, oh, a movie's done. Like, no, sometimes you got to go back and you got to do some reshoots and a bunch of other things. But then the idea of this being a trilogy really set in from New Line, and they saw the vision, and Jackson and them had 3 scripts, extensively huge scripts, as we know. They shot, they tried to do everything as pretty much to the letter as you could, with practical effects, mixing it with Weta and their special effects, and immerse us into the world of Lord of the Rings, and and shoot this all in New Zealand, which feels like, again, like Peter Jackson just being like,
shot everything. How did you get the Frighteners shot in New Zealand? It takes place in California.
I kept thinking I didn't get to mention this is the Frightener episode, but like Peter Jackson's whole career is just like, I just want to shoot in New Zealand. And it felt like, thinking about that, I was reminded of just like, well, how are you gonna like? Well, J. Robert Oppenheimer, how are you gonna build a nuclear facility? Where you wanna do all this? Yeah, let's just house it in my favorite place on the planet in Los Alamos. And so it's like, and like only this madman is gonna get what he wants, as long as you just keep shooting it where
Power
he
of
wants.
persuasion.
Exactly. And then yet we were given these films, and I remember the marketing for this. I remember the first trailer for this. I remember the poster for this. I remember the buildup for this. And I remember people thinking none of this was going to work. There was a lot of skepticism, anticipation, nerves, probably by New Line, because this was a huge gamble. Like New Line was a good studio, but they had never really gone out on a limb quite like this. This is a gamble that could literally kill many people's jobs, and you would never see them
Could kill a
ever
studio
again.
if this was an absolute
Oh
disaster.
yeah. I mean, like, the big studios can make risks. There could be, a studio film can, but also too nowadays studio films can destroy your bottom line. And back then, even like these were all three, I think, made for around 100 million a piece, and or 85 to 100 million a piece, which is a lot if you adjust for inflation and think about that. So, but Fellowship of the Ring, we're here. Cody, when I asked you which film you wanted to do in this, you said this one. It could have been any of them, probably, honestly. But tell us, Cody Dericks, why Fellowship of the Rings and what you love about this third, because I agree with you, third of the story that is Lord of the Rings.
I don't really think I had a reason for picking this one over any of the others. Um, so bye.
Well,
And
let's wrap it up. You can find us on
um,
Spotify and
Honestly, for people that love Lord of the Rings that come onto this episode, it's kind of just an excuse to talk about your love of Lord of the Rings broadly,
right.
probably. And
And
this just so
even though
happens to
I,
be one of the three Lord of the Rings films.
well, I mean, there are people do have favorites. Some people don't see it like Cody and myself as like one continuous
Okay, well
giant.
here's the
Well,
so Ryan, you consider Kill Bill one film, correct?
I do.
What do you like better, Kill Bill 1 or Kill Bill 2?
This is a good question because I used to be a big Kill Bill 2 stan, but I actually have kind of been like more recently a Volume 1
Well, then you
stan.
just contradicted yourself because you just split them into two and compared them against
I
each
just like
other
the first
as if
half of
they're
the
not one
film a little
movie.
bit. I like the first. Well, technically, you want to get down the rabbit hole about Kill Bill and how that was also, let's cut it up into
I'm
two
just saying
movies and how that was shot as one.
I won that argument the second you said, "Well, let me think about it." But anyway,
Shut
carry on,
up.
Cody.
Shut up, jerk. Anyway, go
I
back,
mean,
Cody.
the thing is, like, I would say I do, gun to my head, I do think Fellowship is my favorite of the three, but that feels weird to say because it's like, I don't know. It's like saying, did you like the meal? What part was best of that like five-star meal? Do you like the appetizer that was perfectly curated? Do you like dessert because you have a sweet tooth and you want to like get to the conclusion?
I'm more
But
of
it's
a
hard to
second
think of
breakfast kind of
them.
person, but I go,
Okay, I
yeah,
get it.
yeah.
But it's hard to think of them as individual, you know, three act structure typical stories because they are telling a grander narrative. And I know you can make the argument that, like, sure, so is Harry Potter, so is MCU, but those have different styles between them. Those are going for different perspectives. These were all shot as one film and all have the same, I'm pretty sure, for the most part, the same crew behind them. Obviously, the same cast, except for some additions here and there. So, Fellowship, though, I do think there is I think there's something to be said about the achievement of Fellowship being maybe the most impressive of the three films individually, because if this movie did not hit the absolute highs it did, you would not get the audience to return for the next two, which they did. And we saw that, the third one ended up being the highest grossing of them all. That doesn't happen if they don't set the table properly, as they did in this first one. We've seen franchises try to do this long-winded franchise thing and peter out. I'm thinking of things that, like, The Hunger Games had diminishing returns after the second one, and some franchises didn't even finish, like Divergent, which is wild. So there's really something fascinating about the achievement of Fellowship of the Ring because the craftsmanship on display, the streamlined storytelling that, except for a major excision of Tom Bombadil, is pretty close to the books from what I remember. And The tone is, I think, so risky, the tone they chose, but it absolutely works. The self-seriousness of this is not a very indulgent movie. It doesn't really look at the audience and go, I don't know, their feet are hairy, isn't that crazy? You know, it presents everything as is. And that's kind of bold for filmmaking in general. Um, I think that fits if you imagine this as being filmed in the 90s, that does fit the 90s film mold a little bit. But by the time we get to Return of the King, and we're not talking about Return of the King here, but indulge me. By the time we get to Return of the King, we're in a very cynical um, time period, especially in America. You know, it's post 9/11. We're firmly in the Bush era. And that movie is so earnest to the point where, like, a major late night punchline was how like close a lot of these male friendships are. Isn't that funny? But the film doesn't shy away from that, and it absolutely works, and it's better for it. And there's a lot of movies nowadays that are gonna, I think, just shrink in terms of rewatchability because they are so mired in the present day, and they don't take themselves seriously. And this movie is firmly saying, "Hey, audience, you're gonna appreciate what I'm giving you in the way that I'm gonna do it." And you see it, the fact that this film's legacy is so strong that not only does it continue through in terms of Hollywood trends, but people still rewatch these movies on the regular. I know I have friends who do it every single year. I've done it many times. Ryan is pointing at his own head. So yeah, I think the achievement of Fellowship of the Ring, if we're talking about an individual film, is kind of the most impressive of all of them, if you ask me.
Well, I'm going to go real quick. I'm going to skip Jade. Normally, it's then Jay's turn to speak. But
This eager beaver over here.
Cody, the other reason you're here, and the listeners have been waiting for this for years, that have followed myself and Jay for podcasting, is Jay is a skeptic when it comes to Lord of the Rings. Hasn't seen these in about a decade.
Agnostic, not a skeptic, Ryan.
Skeptic.
Not a skeptic.
Same thing.
I'm open. I'm open to it.
If you were open, you would have watched them
Just
until
don't
we did a
believe.
series. I think I just won that argument. Thank you very much.
I haven't.
All right.
I don't. You know, I don't have an opinion yet. I just haven't been to church in a while.
Okay. All right. We'll get you there, buddy. But it's been like 15 years at least, right, Jay, since you've seen these films, right? In their full.
Yeah,
Okay.
so at least 15 years. Yeah,
And you've only seen them once, if I'm not mistaken.
only seen them once. Obviously, only the theatrical versions.
No extendeds. Okay.
No extendeds.
No extendeds. All right. So we'll get there in a second.
I'm watching both.
For this series. Yes, you are watching both for this series, so you are putting in the work to catch up. Though you have 15 years and a whole life to catch up with these films. For myself, I agree with really everything Cody said. As time has gone on, when I was younger, I thought Fellowship of the Ring was the most boring part it really was. It was like you're getting in, but like I very much loved Two Towers and Return of the King. And for me, it was a lot like Star Wars. Like when I was growing up, I liked Empire and Return of the Jedi more. There's a lot more action. There's less having to explain and sort of building of the world and whatnot. But as time has gone on, I have grown so fond to the introduction of this world and these characters and the patience that Peter Jackson allows the audience to understand everything around the rules, the lore. And you're right, Cody, this self-seriousness that doesn't also mean that it's devoid of comedy or comedic moments or light moments in it. And sincerity. These movies are sincere as hell. And there is a lot of emotion that are attached to themselves pretty much around any corner of these movies. You can, if you said you got emotional at that moment, I could justify it because there's a way that it all connects. And for a guy that didn't really at first want to fully invest himself into Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings in these books and Tolkien's novels, he understands it completely. The screenwriters understand it completely. The costume designers understand it completely. The armor of these films understand it. The set designers, the actors, everything about this is as pitch perfect of casting, and we're going to talk about all the different castings and and what could have been, because there's some wild choices out there for sure. But for me, the thing about the Fellowship of the Ring is that this is setting up every event that happens in the latter two films, but it also is truly the only time that we get to see these characters and the conflicts that this world has been facing, and how it relates to the individuals of 9 people, and how against this giant, villain that is lurking, there's dozens of other events that cause friction, that cause disagreements, that causes fear, that causes anxiety, just within Frodo, let alone everybody else within the Fellowship. And the film gives everybody a moment to understand the level of severity of what Frodo's burden is. And with the extended editions, because I watched both of them as well, you get even more details, specifically for someone like Boromir, who I always loved Sean Bean in the first film. And I think the extended edition does him and Viggo Mortensen's relationship as Aragorn even more justice.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra Aragorn.
It's a lot of extra stuff for him, obviously, for sure. And it's 45 extra minutes for the film.
30 minutes of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was watching this on the extended version. I was like, this movie is almost over, but I'm pretty sure there's like 40 minutes left. And it's, what do they call them? Fan club credits? What is that? I don't know. The credits are like 30 minutes long.
I remember this.
Yeah. The credits are long because if you're watching them in a marathon, you have to, like, when I've seen Lord of the Rings, the extendeds in the theater at an Alamo Draft House, back to back to back. And this was before The Hobbit came out. And they couldn't just turn off Fellowship. They had to run through the whole credits. So that was a great chance to go to the restroom or get food or whatever you needed to do.
So what was that? Did you like pay for the edit and then you got your name in the credits or something? I mean,
No, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think that was a...
No, it had something to do with that.
It wasn't like a GoFundMe.
It wasn't like a GoFundMe. It was like a
little thing for the fans.
Yeah, it was like the fans from the way back. Like, they're not adding names. They're not adding names now. No, this was for the extended editions when they came out. Because the extended editions, I believe, Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, like they came out like a year after even the physical release of the regular DVD. Like it was a while. Like you didn't just get them all at the same time. Like
no, there
was a separation because like they didn't all 3 come out at the same time. It was like six months to a year. So like when
the charter members of the Lord of the Rings official fan club.
Yeah. So there
added
was
20 minutes of credits to the extended cut of Fellowship.
Big old nerds.
Big old nerds. But that's also the love and care that I think Jackson and company have, is that they leave no stone unturned into the appreciation of people that love this world and love these films and made them a part of their sort of obsession. I remember seeing this. I remember seeing Harry Potter, and when Harry Potter came out, there was like a giant guy outside our theater that was dressed like Hagrid, and I had read the books, and it was like what the hell is going on? It was like when in '99 when Star Wars happened, where people were dressed up, but when Lord of the Rings, there was people dressed up like hobbits and Gandalf. I didn't understand any of it. I hadn't read the books yet, and then I watched the film, and I saw the film 4 times in theaters.
Wow.
And because everybody in my family had to see it. This was an event. And it is an event still in the household. Told the wife we were going to be doing this, and she said, "Cool, when do we get to watch them?" These are important films. These are in like the top 10 of films for me, period. I told my wife the other day that if I know how long I have left on this planet, one of the last things of many other films, but one of the selections in there will be the Lord of the Rings, the extended editions, as part of that. They are important films, and I think they also, like Cody said, they stand the test of time, and they are films that have, I think, a lot, this trilogy and even to a certain extent the first two Spider-Man films are what so many franchise films spawned off, and then obviously from the spawns off of those have created the machines that we have nowadays. So yeah, this is a perfect third to start off with here. But now I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna leave the floor. Jay Ledbetter, decade plus since you've seen these. You are not allowed to see these in the theater. You have seen the regular theatrical edition one time.
Now twice.
But now you have seen both the theatrical and the extended edition. Jay, I have to ask you, what did you think of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring?
Yeah, so really my relationship or lack thereof really does, to your point, Ryan, stem from the fact that I wasn't allowed to see this movie growing up. And so I was 10, wasn't allowed to see PG-13 movies, so I didn't get to see it. Grew up in that kind of environment, which is probably now why I'm drawn to the things that people would say are deplorable in many ways. But
Jay,
that's how growing up
upbringing
works.
This was maybe the first PG-13 movie I saw in theaters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and deal. So this was something that's just sort of passed me by. Huge Potter kid. That was my thing. I was Harry Potter all the way. I was allowed to see that when it came out.
They let you do Potter?
My mother was just very like
inconsistent.
This one is PG.
G. Oh, okay.
PG.
And then by the time you got to Azkaban, they're like, or no, it wasn't Azkaban.
Then I was old. I would have been old enough by then.
It was Goblet of Fire, I think.
And also at a certain point, it's like, well, he saw the first two.
So he
have
can
to let him
this.
see the third one now, right? But, but no, I just wasn't allowed to. I was not allowed to see this movie. And one thing I do love about this movie is the difference between it being PG and it being PG-13, and Peter Jackson's kind of horror sensibilities seeping into many corners of this movie. Rewatching it this time, I think it's a perfect movie. I mean, I think it really is just an immaculate work. I mean, I think it is.
Wait a minute. We did it, folks. Let's go.
It is so well paced. We can talk about the differences between the extended and the theatrical. My argument would be that I think most of the true, like, new scenes, not just additional footage to stuff that's already there, probably shouldn't be in the movie, but whatever. We can talk about that, but either way, that's just, not terribly important in the context of the entire enterprise. The film is, yes, to exactly what y'all are saying, it is so earnest, it is so sincere, it is absolutely gorgeous, the practicality behind all of it, but also, even when it does lean into CGI, it sort of acknowledges the surreality of CGI and leans into this idea of showing you things that you can't even sort of imagine in CGI, rather than completely replicating reality, which it does occasionally. But it's also like, this is, shinier. This is Middle Earth waterfalls, not earthly waterfalls, because we can't show you Middle Earth waterfalls on Earth, but we can with CGI. And that sort of facsimile of kind of this world, I think, really pays dividends. I do think all of the performances are incredible. The action sequences are in what I love about the action sequences are that they're character based, and there's a narrative inside of every single action sequence, and you can see not just within the broader scope of the story, but within a single scene, what is motivating each character to act the way that they are in that particular moment. And then that builds onto this grander narrative, which is this movie, which builds onto the grander narrative, which is this trilogy. I love how they just say a bunch of jargony stuff, Like, it's just like, oh, you know the tale of Grimgrom the Grey from old Nimbletown. And it's like,
Love
of
Grimgrom.
course, I would love
Love
to know
his
all
work.
about Grimgrom the Grey. That sounds amazing. And it just kind of gives this real kind of worn in idea, just this really lived in world. As much as anything, that is what Lord of the Rings is to me. It is, at least this film. And again, this is the only one I've watched. But for me, it's just like, this is cozy. Like how well realized all of this is. It is such a confident movie. It is such a thought through movie, and I can't wait to continue to watch it because it's like, how can you not leave this movie and be like, I want to keep following these characters. These are my boys, and I can't wait to keep going with them. And one of the things I was thinking about, especially on the when I was watching the extended cut, because it's a little longer. I guess you sit with it a little more. I was like, this is basically A New Hope and Empire together, right? Like, A New Hope ends when Gandalf dies at the bridge. And then we go into Empire. And then in the same way that at the end of Empire, everybody is split up and at their lowest point, now everybody is split up and at their lowest point, and we don't know where we're going to go from here. And so you do get kind of those two climaxes to a certain extent in the same movie. And also, anytime you get an emotional choir going, I'm done. Forget about it. Like, I mean, that is my weakness. We did a Terrence Malick series, for God's sake, Ryan. Terrence Malick is my favorite filmmaker, so of course I've got a weakness for an emotional choir, and it, especially when Gandalf died.
Oh man,
come on, man, forget about it.
It
That's
takes
all.
itself so seriously.
It
Yes,
really
it does.
From
Totally works.
from the opening. I think that the best start to a trilogy maybe ever, outside of maybe like the opening crawl for Star Wars, is like this narrated history of where we are from Blanchett as Galadriel, and seeing this the severity of the war and the importance of the ring and establishing all that. But it moves at such a serious, confident pace, but it's so thrilling. And you're 20 minutes into this movie and you're like, holy hell, like this world, like this ring is that important and everything. And then the movie decides to spend another 40 minutes in the Shire at a birthday party and with these characters and make you connect with every single one of them.
Because you're already there with the world. You're like,
yeah,
oh, shit.
Yeah, now I can be with the people. Now I can figure out, okay, he's had this ring for a long goddamn time. And like the movie is just patient. We don't see blockbusters patient anymore. Like the idea of like, okay, we're going to spend a chunk of time with every single character, and it's building up because like nowadays we're not going to use this next 3 episodes to shit all over modern blockbusters. Hopefully we don't do that. But like the idea of like what I saw a couple weeks ago with the chairs for the new Marvel movie scared the shit out of me. Because like when I watch a movie like this introduced characters at a 1 to 2 person. Like once you get the hobbits, you're then introduced to Vigo, and then you're introduced to, Rivendell, and then you're introduced to, Saruman, and then you're introduced to Legolas and Boromir, and it's slowly building these guys up. There's a bunch of people just like in chairs, and you've got like 900 people, and they're all supposed to have a moment. They're all supposed to matter. And that's what modern blockbusters are. And they just don't. It just doesn't work.
But Ryan, when this movie came out, it would have been unheard of to have this many characters.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But then again, that's what Star Wars is like, right?
Star Wars had 4 people in it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, they had the 3 leads, and then they had Wookiee, and then they had the droids, but then they're building up over time.
Wookiee, my favorder character. Wookiee.
Well, they had Chewbacca, and they had but then they had Obi-Wan, and then they also had they had Vader and everything going on with.
Well, yeah,
with
but you're going now into where it's like, yeah, this movie has, if you actually look at it, like 25 characters in it, but
not every movie does that. That's the thing too. It's like, to your point, Jay, like Star Wars is like the thing that Jackson could look to and say, like, this many characters could work. But even with that, as opposed to this, well, I guess even so with Star Wars, people do the same thing, which is like everybody connects or has connected with at least one, if not every single 9 members of the Fellowship by the end of the film. And to your point, you're like, we're about to go on 3 separate stories, almost like television, and and that's rather unheard of as well, for them all to have emotional payoffs and for you to connect with those characters too.
Well, to your point, the fact like that every single person who walked out of this movie could tell you the names of about 15 characters off the top of their head. That is such a narrative achievement. I watch movies with half the amount of characters nowadays, and I have trouble telling
Can't tell you
what their names are, what their exact relations are. All 9 of the Fellowship, all the villains, the extraneous characters like the elves, and what their race
Cody,
is, where they live.
You're even like, okay, that's the orc with the white face, like the buff jacked up orc. You're like, okay, like you at least acknowledge, like, oh, this is the movie with the guy, the white faced orc, and he's gonna like have the giant arrows and stuff like that. Like that's more memorable than like name a Marvel movie, name a whatever movie nowadays, a Fast and Furious film. Like I can't tell you any of those characters, but the
characters are so well founded. Not just
his name is Dominic Toretto. Ryan.
Yeah, hold on.
Keep going, Cody.
They're so well performed and specific, and the characters, especially throughout the Fellowship, when we start meeting them quickly, when we get to Rivendell, the characters walk up and almost give like their action figure phrase, like if you push the button on the back of the action figure, like how they would talk, and you get that in the first like 3 times they speak, and them, what they're into, their energy, their attitude.
That is true.
What their goal is here, they all have the same goal, but how they're going to go about that goal, what they want from the ring. You get that so expediently. And it's not all dialogue, obviously. It's a lot of its direction and blocking, but it's just so elegantly done. And a lot of that is thanks to Tolkien. He has these great characters, but there are ways to fuck that up. We saw The Hobbit. I couldn't tell you what those dwarves' names were at the end of that movie.
Which is crazy, right? Because that movie, instead of introducing 4 and slowly building up, that movie gives you 13, 14 characters within the first hour. And you're really only connecting to like 1 or 2 of those people.
I can't wait to watch those. Those are good.
Oh, Jay, just buckle up, buddy. I think everything you're going to say lovingly about these 3 films, you're going to be the total opposite.
I am interested to find. That does seem to be the consensus. I'm interested to figure out how that can possibly be after watching this movie. Like, how can you completely misunderstand what made this movie so successful? Okay, let's ask this. Who's your guy? Who's your one of the 9?
Oh, one of the 9. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm
a simple man. I'm an Aragorn guy.
I feel like when I was a kid, everybody wanted to be Legolas.
Legolas?
Everybody wanted to be Legolas. Trust me.
He was cool back then. Orlando Bloom was the like breakout star of this movie.
Yeah, Jay, he was the breakout. People want, and trust me, when you get to 2 Towers and Return of the King and the
very little
to do
there, you're like,
very little to do, but people were like, wow, who's that guy? For what I love, of these characters, it's Aragorn and what he represents, and obviously the that is such a fascinating, rich character that gets fully shown and explained throughout this film, of the not wanting to continue the bad bloodline that he's had before, the romance that he has, the allegiance to Frodo and the ring, his earnestness too of being sort of the silent leader behind Gandalf. But my heart, and I don't know how he's not your heart, but the heart of this movie is once and always is Samwise Gamgee. Like Sam is just every scene that Sam's in, it's just, God damn, this guy.
I'm going alone. Yeah, and I'm coming with you.
If I take this step, It's the farthest from home I've ever been. God damn it! Oh no! And you know what journey they're about to go on, and
Rudy.
it's so good. And Sean Astin's incredible, and but everybody works. I think the one that gets to shine the most, because spoiler alert, this is really the one that he gets to be in, is Sean Bean and the relationship of Gondor and man's relationship to Middle Earth, and how both you hear that conversation at Rivendell with Gandalf, and you hear him talk about men are going to be the future. Men are going to be what carry this whole world after we're all gone. And Elrond is unconvinced because of his history and seeing Isildur not drop the ring and end all this and continue this vicious cycle, much like the vicious cycles that we in humanity continue to do in our world over and over again. And even though he has a close relationship with Aragorn, there is still something about, like, I've taught this guy that that's not actually the path. And yet Gandalf sees something in Aragorn that is the chance to be special and be a leader. And you feel that throughout the film. Like, it's a much different scene in the theatrical cut than in the extended. But when they first interact between Boromir and Aragorn, and he gets the sword, and he mistakes him for just being like an elf, not being an elf, but that he's a man, and he realizes that there's a connection. And when Aragorn, and he drops it, the blade that hit down Sauron, and the way he picks it up, it's so earnest and it's so respectful, even though he's trying to cut ties with that lineage. It's just perfect character development for all around. But yeah. Long term.
I'm partial to Gandalf myself.
Oh, you are?
I mean, we love him.
Yeah, I think he's just such a glue. You feel that loss, even though they
Gandalf the
basically
glue.
just left the house for the journey like 20 minutes before when he what we think dies. You feel like they've lost God almost. They feel like something is missing, some guiding light or some unifying, understanding, all-knowing being. And now they're on their own. Now they're scattered to the winds, and they shortly thereafter literally are.
I mean, I remember when I first saw it, and I was a mess. My parents had to like calm me down when Gandalf died, because I was like, and also I hadn't read the books. I didn't see any of it coming. And it just, I think for a lot of young kids in our generation as well, Cody and Jay, you weren't able to see this in the theaters, but like seeing a main character like that die in this film, like I'd watched Star Wars, I was like, oh, that's not, I mean, like, yeah, they freeze Han, but he comes like right back, you know what I mean? And you didn't know, obviously.
It's the fact that you think he won and then he loses.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
whipped.
Yeah. And then just that moment that Jackson allows all of them to, and I think it's more drawn out in the extended edition, but even Legolas, who is, elves are not supposed to be as emotional as hobbits or man, even he's disoriented. He can feel as if these feelings, like they've lost such a key figure. And then when you see Galadriel and the woodland elves, they're like, I cannot see him, and their realization too is just as sad, and then that's just as impactful to what you're saying, Cody, is how Gandalf is. And beyond that for even Frodo, and everybody else involved. And McKellen's also just so good in the role.
Yeah, too. McKellen's incredible. But also, shout out John Rhys-Davies. If you need a 6'1" Welsh man to play either an Egyptian sidekick or a Dwarven warrior, look no further, is what we have learned. Because
he's 6'1".
He is 6'1".
Apparently, they cast him because he was the right height compared to like Elijah Wood.
Mm-hmm.
So he could be in the same shot as them, and it would still make sense. But because he's supposed to be taller than them, but not as tall as, Viggo Mortensen.
Well, Jay, you've seen the filming. Have you watched any of the behind the scenes?
I watched a little bit of it. Yeah. I mean, some of the Yeah,
the mechanics of how
the
they got
trickery
these shots
is very funny. I mean, it's incredible.
It's great.
it's better than CGI.
It totally
it's a
works.
marvel.
Yeah, because you're just like, this is how it's supposed to be. Sometimes to make a movie like this, it should be a little hard.
There was a time early in the film, and watching that stuff can sometimes kind of ruin it for you a little bit. But when they're riding on the cart early in the film, you do see Ian McKellen looking backwards a little bit more than he probably should be because Elijah Wood is way back here. But that's just super small stuff that it doesn't matter, but it does just kind of lend to the. I would much rather it be like that than be this super CGI
and they're doing
nonsense fest
all on location.
It rules, yeah, all on location.
Just
they built Hobbiton.
Yeah,
it's awesome. So many big, great, wide David Lean landscape shots. It all just feels so grounded, as stupid as that sounds, in a movie like this, and all the orc makeup and stuff. It's so gross, and that is for
enjoy
me.
Enjoy it now, buddy.
Oh, does it get CGI?
Well, they had to. Well, okay, so like that's the great thing about the original trilogies is like they have that, but because that makeup was like it was rough. You hear a lot of behind the scenes stuff about like
I
that.
bet it was miserable.
Yeah, and so when it came to the Hobbit,
CGI very easy.
That's what happened with the goblins and the orcs.
Awesome.
In that, it's like they were like, we're just gonna cut the corners here because there's just no way we're not gonna do that again to these people, and that's honestly, I don't know, Cody, if you agree or not, but that is one of the biggest differences I think between the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy is the excessive use of CGI within giant packs of villains, and seeing because even like when they're
from Lawrence of Arabia to World War Z.
Yeah, where like they've got like they're surrounded by the goblins, right? And it's a quick aerial shot of all these goblins in the cave, just surrounding them before the Belron comes in, and they have to run away from that. He quickly cuts to actual people in that makeup. Multiple shots surrounding them.
They're all coming down the beams, but then when it's a static shot, it's all people.
Exactly, which is great. And then he does that with orcs as well too. So it's that blend of CGI where it's tricking the eye. Like, did they have like 100,000 people out there? No,
CGI is a tool.
It's a tool here.
The tracking shots through Mordor, I guess, where they're building all the orcs and the Uruk-hai. That stuff looks awesome.
Well, that's not in Mordor. That's in Isengard.
Isengard. See, this is where I need your help, y'all. Yeah. See, this is why you're here.
And those are Uruk-hai.
Uruk-hai, yes.
Yeah, not
so they're all of them there are Uruk-hai?
Yeah, what Sauron creates is
all the
Uruk-hai.
ones that are bubbling up out of the mud.
Yeah.
Are Uruk-hai?
Yeah.
They're
the goblin orc.
They're like the
hybrids.
The Navy SEALs to the
the SEAL teams.
Right?
They're sort of like they're the creations. They're the birth of orc through the dark wizard magic that is used also for the trees, which the trees also have magic within themselves as well too.
Right.
So and it's exactly.
So the orcs are the stupid ones.
Pretty much.
They're pawns.
Yeah, exactly. And these are more like the generals. Yeah.
Slightly stronger pawns.
Exactly. And those are, but, when like they come in there and they're also smaller, like I would say the orcs are a little bit more smaller and the Uruk-hai are a little bit bigger.
They're jacked.
Because they're built off of the structure of giant trees, and through magic.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
cool.
So, okay, I'm just throwing stuff out. I might totally be wrong about this, but like I hope I've done my research. I do sound like a goddamn nerd on this episode.
Well, this is the episode for the nerds. I mean, you're not listening to this to make fun of us. I hope.
Yeah, I'm down. I hope so. I hope not.
I was hoping to, but then I liked the darn movie.
Yeah, joke's on you. It's a good movie.
No. Well, is that it? No, I'm just kidding. But. No, I mean, Jay, talk about some of these other characters. I mean, like, talk about the hobbits, buddy, and being in Hobbiton and following Frodo and Bilbo and everybody else. What'd you
So
think
I
of all
will say
that?
this,
Here we go.
in my opinion, worst addition to the extended edition is the opening. Here's what hobbits do. Little bit at the beginning
Mm.
with Bilbo. Don't like it. I think it's a little too
Well,
earnest,
that's
maybe.
that's the text from the original Hobbit film.
Um,
Yeah.
Tolkien sounds like a real dork.
He's just it's more of an introduction to the to hobbits in the world.
But it is played so twinkly and
Yeah.
ooh.
Yeah.
But the hobbits themselves, I think are very good. To your point, yeah, Sam really does feel like the kind of he's the one who you really want to root for as much as anybody is Sam because he can't talk to the girl, and he's kind of just the straggler, the hanger on of Frodo, the chosen one, and he's really the one who's trying to find his place in this crazy Middle Earth that we are currently in. And Pippin and Merry are fine, they're good. They're good for a laugh every now and then. They're the R2D2 and C3PO. It's crazy how these tropes have existed for so long and you almost didn't even realize it. And I having recently watched the Harry Potter movies as well, just because we just did that on a whim, it was just astounding. I was like, oh, that's where Voldemort came from. Oh. So like when they touch Harry's scar, that came from this. Oh,
Hmm.
I got it. Okay.
Oh, from the
And
ring.
yeah, and I'm sure you can trace all of this stuff back to certain other things, and maybe there's some scholar out there who was like, oh well, what you don't know is that Lord of the Rings is actually completely ripped off of um, Climbatharu the Red, written in the medieval times.
Did you read
But
that for this series as well, Jay?
I couldn't find a copy. I wanted a first edition. I
I'm
wasn't gonna
descended
I wasn't gonna
from
buy a reprint.
Climbatharu, the Red's author.
Oh,
That's a family business right there you're talking about. Be careful.
maybe you can lend him a copy
No.
of the. Oh, okay. Well, you're never gonna know, Jay.
Heirlooms,
Well,
sorry.
that's kind of like the Hidden Fortress John Carter thing, right? Like those are all
Yeah,
extensions and olive branches of what then Lucas then created for
well,
Star
definitely. But
Wars.
even you can tie a lot of Star Wars to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you
I mean,
can.
Lord of the Rings does feel like a pretty foundational text. Have not read the books. I have them sitting right behind me, but I have not opened them because I did not have time. But it is just really astounding to me how influential the film is, and then by proxy, I have to assume the book is. The books are, and it just it does feel part of what makes it so cozy, I think, is how familiar all of it feels. But you have to remember that this is where a lot of that familiarity grew from. I mean, this is some really revolutionary stuff that we're looking at, but it doesn't rely completely on the recognition and familiarity with these ideas. It is presenting it in a new cinematic way that nobody had ever thought of doing before. It is realizing it is the collision of technology and pure like sheer of will practicality that was abandoned shortly after this, right? You have Jurassic Park, which is like we're dipping our toe into the CGI. 95% of this movie is going to be stuff that you've seen before. 95% of this movie is Lawrence of Arabia, is Cleopatra, is traditional studio filmmaking. And 5% of it is going to be explode your brain dinosaur action.
Mhm.
And now we're getting closer and closer to, now 20% of the movie is going to be blow your mind CGI, but we are still fully committed to showing what can be done practically. And eventually what happens is we don't need to show everything that can be done practically. We can take shortcuts. And this movie takes zero shortcuts. And I think that, as much as anything, is its true power.
For sure. I think. Oh, Cody, did you have something?
I just it's hard to praise this film too much for its ingenuity. And to your point, like it holds up better than films that came out a few months ago. Something as simple as positioning the actors in a different way in a wagon that sells their height difference that's gonna look good forever. Forever. You know, in the same way that some early matte paintings do, like Black Narcissus or something. Like that's always gonna look good. And I think what we're talking about earlier with Peter Jackson, where we wish he could return something like this, I don't think it's really possible. It's kind of like leaving home and you can't come home again because I don't think he'll ever have somebody who can tell him no or give him notes ever again. And some directors don't need that, like Spielberg, and some directors do need that. They need the bumpers in the bowling alley because that creates ingenuity. You know, to your point, Jay, we can throw 100, 200, $300 million at the screen in terms of just CGI slop and fix it in post, but like that's going to be so fleeting. That is donuts compared to a dinner.
No, Peter Jackson is truly in like somebody buys him a ping pong table and he's like, why do I need this? I have VR table tennis. Like this,
I have it on my phone.
I don't need this to take up space in my house. He loves his toys. He loves his toys. And that's what he does now.
Well, he's very much like in the Ang Lee sort of world too, where like Ang Lee's in Zemeckis are like, I want to push this medium forward regardless of actually how it looks. It's more interesting for me to play with the technology than maybe necessarily making this groundbreaking film that I've done before. But then there's other people, to your point, Cody, where there's like a, you know, like a Spielberg or even like a Christopher Nolan, where they just are like, I need to work within parameters that are still, you know, like Nolan's going to try his best, and we're going to see with the Odyssey how far he can push himself without special effects, because he's going to need special effects for that movie. But he's going to be able to blend it. And I think the closest that we kind of got to this was like when Star Wars, when the new trilogy came out, and they wanted to, and Abrams and Rian Johnson tried to go back to having a balance there, right? And you know, regardless of what we think of those stories, like they are not.
No, it was cool to see. Oh, puppets.
Yeah. Oh, puppets. Oh, droids that are actually the droids and not, you know.
I mean, I won't even lie. Jurassic World, a movie I think is atrocious. They did have like two giant dinosaur puppets. I was like, cool.
True.
You know, I find it so cynical and depressing that the only way we are able to get, for the most part, practical effects like this or puppeteering is when it is aping a style or a continuation.
So yeah.
Like the Star Wars sequels. It was so exciting, to your point, to see Force Awakens and be like, oh my God, that's a person in a costume. But they would never be able to do that for a random sci-fi movie. It has to be CGI nowadays. And I find that it's tough for me to see movies like that nowadays because I feel excited to see the craft on screen, but it makes me sad about it. Or something like in Mary Poppins Returns when they had to find hand-drawn animators for the hand-drawn sequences because Disney didn't have those anymore. And it's only because they were aping a previous style. That is so upsetting to me that we are not able to use these tools. They can only be used as reference or for nostalgia purposes, which is like my least favorite ethos when it comes to filmmaking.
No, it's so true, because then it doesn't feel genuine. It feels super disingenuous. It honestly, it just feels like, fine, you guys won't shut up about this. We'll give this to you.
Well, no, I mean,
but we don't actually want to do it. You know what I mean?
It's made very endearingly. Like, these are people who love this stuff.
No,
and
but Jay,
like with Rian Johnson is really like, please let me do this. Like, I love this so much.
Yeah, but the fact that he has to beg to do it in the first place, and it's not just like allow him to do it. That's the difference.
It's harder.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this is just a combination of a perfect timing, perfect person, perfect timing. Mm-hmm. Peter Jackson was a very forward-thinking technologist when it came to film, but the technology was at a particular point where he couldn't advance it any further than it was at this point. Mm-hmm. If you make this movie now, hell, you don't need a damn person in the movie. You can, I mean,
that's a set. I mean, well, if you make this movie now, it's Avatar. You know what I mean? Like you could have just Avatar.
We can talk about the merits of
but the
lack of with Avatar. But
the thing about Avatar
is this.
Well, I will say this about Big Jim is like that's the thing is you have to have a visionary behind the desk, and James Cameron and Peter Jackson and Sam Raimi and some of these directors that have taken on these massive projects, they have a vision and they're pretty good at what they do.
They have a vision, but I will say with Avatar specifically, it never reaches the heights of this movie, and I think it's because of that tactility. There's just nothing.
Yeah.
This movie feels so real and honest and rich and world weary and
Well, Jay, I also think
fully
too,
realized.
the thing about watching his earlier stuff is you see, to what both you and Cody have said, you see his really, I actually think more of this film than in the other two installments that we'll talk about the next 2 weeks. We see his horror background in a lot of shots here, particularly in the opening. I think in the troll fight. I think of really on the road, like, right,
Yeah.
Cody, like when they're on the road and the
The ring wraiths.
the ring wraiths are there on
Yeah.
the horse and everything. Like, you feel the tension more here for that as a director, and that's, I think, another thing that separates it is some genre filmmakers. And I know, Cody, you're a big horror fan, but having someone that knows genre, and I think if you're able to scare people, you can then you're able to get audience's attention at such a better rate than just a straight up action director. And I think that's a tool in his belt that he's using here. It's his horror background, so much so here, because then also in horror films, you have to be able to develop characters to be able to root for them either way, for the most part, all the way into the usually bloody finale, right?
Well, also, it's a way to shortcut to stakes. You know, if you show characters afraid and you frame it in a way that inspires fear, the audience is, unless it's poorly done, gonna buy into the stakes of the situation because you feel the mortal peril that the characters feel. You also see the horror influence in some really great jump scares, which I don't think you look at Lord of the Rings and you would before this movie think of it for jump scares, but there's the one where Bilbo reaches for the ring in Rivendell and his
Yeah.
face suddenly changes. The whole thing of Galadriel, you would have a queen, is I remember that really scaring me as a kid, but also
Gandalf.
kind of drawing me in.
Bilbo Baggins,
Yeah.
you'll
Yep.
not take me for some conjurer thief.
Him
Yeah.
coming out of the shadows for is it secret, is it safe? Is
Yep.
it's
The
horror
troll
framing.
peeking around the corner.
The
Yep,
troll
it's
peeking around the corner.
great.
Oh, I would even say the way in which he frames the doors slamming when Gandalf is talking to Saruman, and you reveal that Saruman is working for the enemy, and the visceralness of their wizard fight scene.
That scene is crazy.
It's terrifying. I always thought that was so jarring, and the excellent shot. I don't know how they pulled that off, but the spinning of Gandalf there, and then the just lifting him up into the, which I always was sitting there. I was like, wait a minute. So you just like lifted him? Did you break your glass? Did you have to like build new glass? And how did you get that up there? Like, that's just nitpicking for me as a. Also, how does he get his staff back? Does he just make a new staff? Does anybody, because he blows up the staff, or he takes the staff, right? Saruman, like,
God doesn't know how
He
staffs
bought a new
work.
one.
he just made a new one there, and he had an extra one there in
He had points.
Rivendell.
You can-
Yeah,
There's probably a whole movie about
the staff.
that. I
Yeah.
bet we could probably
That's-
get a prequel out of that.
3 episodes of the Amazon show, I would guarantee, which I'm obviously not watching.
Cody, do you watch the Amazon show?
No.
I watched
No.
I watched the first season, and my wife was like, "This is good," and I'm like, "This is terrible.
I heard it's real boring.
It is so fucking boring."
What's it called?
And
Ring of Power?
I think so. And
Lord of the Rings, I heard. Is
when
what's
Lord of the Rings and
boring.
Ring of Power,
That's-
yeah,
that's
full
pretty
title,
funny.
full
Lord of the
title right there.
Rings.
But I watched, and so we never got to season 2, and they've put in so much money into that series. Like, I saw like $300-400 million for the first season. It's like,
Yeah, it probably cost as much as the entire trilogy cost to make in
did.
multiples. And you have to figure, like, I mean, it goes to show, I don't know a single person that's watching the show. And those that I do know, and like the conversation online about it, unless I'm just not in those bubbles, is non-existent.
I don't know
So
anybody in.
what are you
like,
paying for?
It's
There's
that
nobody-
expensive, and it doesn't even have big actors in it, does it?
That's the other thing too. It's like there's a bunch of nobodies in
No
it.
star power, and
That,
still,
and like I
one
don't
of the
even
most
see
expensive
like
things ever.
moments clipped on Twitter like, wow, what a great camera move in the way that even like some Disney Plus shows do. You know, like
Well,
you see moments from Andor, you see moments from some of the Marvel shows. I've seen Nada from
you see naughty.
the
Mm,
I've seen Naughty. I've seen Nary and Nada is what I was trying
there
to
you
do
go.
there. I've seen Nary a clip. Nada.
I feel like for Amazon, Fallout kind of has done what they wanted
well,
Lord of
that's
the
because they
Rings to
got.
do.
Well, that's because they got Goggins,
They
baby.
got Goggins. You got to get Goggins.
You got to
in
get
there. Come
Goggins
on.
in there.
Yeah,
Get him.
gold.
Get him to be.
If it's Goggins, it's gold.
You know what? Get Goggins in the Gollum prequel. Let him do it. He's already losing the hair anyway. You know what I mean? Just get
Wow.
Goggins. What? Just get Goggins in there.
Get that receding hairline in a makeup chair.
Could
Right?
you imagine?
I need an antebellum South Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
starring Walton Goggins.
My precious. Yeah, that's what you know what I mean. I started watching Righteous Gemstones. I'm almost through.
Oh,
the
you're
first.
like early.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I
You
never
started watching it. I love that show.
It's
so
very
fun.
good. Very good. I gotta watch Vice Principals. I heard
He's
that's really good
unbelievable in
too.
it.
Have you watched Vice Principals, Jay?
No, I'm not. That's the one of those I have not seen.
Jay, outside of Gollum, who would Goggins play in Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings?
Oh man, I mean
You think he'd be Elrond?
R1.
I could just imagine. I could just imagine Goggins and Vigo on that bridge sharing their love.
Let me tell you, Peter Jackson lights the women in this film very old Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I really like that about it as well. I mean,
Liv Tyler
it does have
absolutely-
a sensibility to it.
Absolutely fantastic in this
Kate
movie.
Blanchett is one of the hottest people who's ever lived in history.
Yeah.
Kate Blanchett is insane in this movie.
She's a fucking angel in this movie.
Love her performance. The way she's framed, A, is doing a lot of the work, but B, the energy she brings to it, the weight she gives it,
She's the
buys
scariest
into the
thing in the
tone.
movie.
I think what I was saying before, I think there's two big. I'm going to keep adding keys to this keychain, but
That's
there's
fine.
two main keys that really help this movie. One's the location shooting. I really think the New Zealand of it all, priceless. Like that is adding so much value. It's like putting
You
a
think
pool
it
in your
looks
house.
better
It's like
than
adding value to the
backlots in
film.
Atlanta?
That's what I mean. Like you can't go tour where they filmed the portal scene of Endgame. If you did, it would be just a room.
As an Atlantan.
Sounds like a
you come check out these
challenge.
parking lots.
Okay,
They're
fine,
pretty
I'll
impressive.
get the blue screens. Okay, and the second key is I think the opening prologue sets the table, sets the tone, and Kate Blanchett's totally bought in like 1 centimeter from the microphone delivery of that voiceover is so just the line reading of but they were all of them deceived is so
For the
good.
another ring
It's so
was
good.
forced. And then she goes, in the land of Mordor, and just
Yeah,
go like,
the land
oh
of
shit.
Mordor,
Yeah,
the fires of Mount Doom. I mean, I
Shout
could
out to
probably recite
them
that thing.
never saying more. They all have to say Mordor.
Mordor.
yeah.
You got to
they're-
roll your tongue a little
They're
bit.
rolling their tongue a lot.
Mordor.
It's like going to Barcelona on like study abroad.
I love also too that like to Jay, your point. No, and I totally agree. She's absolutely incredible. This is why I like. You know, it was funny when I got to meet Kate Blanchett a couple of years ago when I was in Telluride. It was I had just seen Tar, so like my mind was already blown from that incredible performance. And she was like the coolest person in the world. She like looked badass and everything. She was in like this purple like leather jacket, and like she had on just she looked amazing.
I would have passed
And
out.
the rep was like essentially like having her talk to everybody, and she came up to me and Eric and I think Clarence Moy of the contending, and we were just talking, but I was in the middle, and her eye line was just looking right at me, and I was just like, I'm just a fan of yours, and I got to tell her, I was like, I have to tell you, the first film I ever saw you in was Lord of the Rings, and that opening sequence just was the greatest thing I've ever seen in a movie, and she talks so highly about Peter Jackson, the experience. And then she asked me where I was from, and I said San Antonio, and she freaked out because her father lives in a town around here, and she had one of her children here in San Antonio at the hospital. And so I was like,
Hit her dad up.
what I was going to say is I think we can get Blanchett on the podcast. Is what I'm trying to say. But
Get her on the pod.
Get her on the pod. But she's incredible. I just think that that scene with her and Frodo and her test for the ring, but really one of the very I cry a lot during these movies, guys. And I don't. Cody, I don't know if you do.
It's the tone.
I don't know.
Talking about this.
It's
the tone.
I don't know
so reverent.
where you guys cry, but the earnestness of her handing the gifts and talking to Aragorn, but then her just interaction with Gimli and him saying like, I asked for a golden hair, a hair from her golden head, and she gave me 3. And I'm like, oh, it's just so perfect. And you see, and then the cut to Legolas's face of like the smile there and the, again, emotion just peeking out of him of gratitude and the growth of those characters. Cause when we first meet Gimli, he's like, never will I give it to an elf, never trust an elf. And then he's like, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in the world. And he's not wrong, because Cate Blanchett is she's an important person, right?
She's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that the key to world peace is like stone cold hotties.
Yeah, I think so.
That is true. If everyone was hot, no one would ever fight. That's
no,
a fact.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, yeah, and that's Jay, you talked about the action sequences earlier. The way that he just gets out of the way and you can understand what everyone's doing. And this is the problem I have with musicals, and this is the problems I have with a lot of action movies is I can't see the things on the screen, and I can't see the action.
That is mostly true. I will say most of the action sequences in this movie are very like wind up, cut, pitch. Here's where the pitch went. Wind up, cut. Now here's the contact. It's not, we're not watching John Wick here.
Oh.
But you can definitely track what's going on. Which is much appreciated. And that's mostly, again, because they can't throw 35,000 things at you on the screen at one time. So there is less just digital noise around everything. And so you can actually track what's going on from one shot to the next, which is great.
But that helps build the characters out, buddy.
Exactly.
And they're using the space.
Action sequence is a short film. There's a narrative within every action sequence. It's
exactly
great in that regard.
I mean, like when they're running away from the Balrog, and like we spend 2.5 minutes of this movie on like them trying to go down a flight of stairs, and they're going to get away, but like it's just those.
Balrog looks unbelievable, by the way.
Yeah. Cool. It looks so. What I love about this, the sparing but effective CGI in this movie, for the most part, is that it is illustrated in a way like you could imagine it being drawn on the side of a van in the 70s. The Balrog
looks like a heavy metal.
It looks like they came straight from the page. Like if there was an illustrated version of this in bedtime story or whatever, or a paperback. It's crazy the storyboarding that they did for this thing, and you see how they're able to develop it all, and then it doesn't look cheap. And that's to Jay, your point. Movies of this era, there are tons of movies. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, you can see that sort of falling apart a little bit there, and maybe there is, it's not 100%, great, but I mean, they knew when to use it and when not to use it in the best way. Probably budgetary reasons, but also just execution wise and understanding like we can't get away with this with practical and hiding it. We have to put our backs into making this or the troll actually feel like it's a real thing in that room. And that also, I think, goes well to the sound design of the film too. And that goes back to Jackson's horror direction, as well as that you can, with a great confident camera and decent CGI and a great sound design, because like the sound or lack of sound in the troll sequences, or the Nazgul and the ring wraiths and their sounds, and and again, and then of course the score, which we haven't even really
We
talked
haven't even
about.
said the words Howard Shore yet, and
We
that is
haven't said the
crazy.
words Howard Shore yet, which is
Okay, he's one
insane.
more key. He's one more key
He's
on
the
the
third key.
keychain.
Yeah, we're adding more keys to the
He's
chain.
he his again the tone. Yeah, he
And
gets it.
that's and Jade, the wonderful thing that you're going to rediscover is that the score for each of these films, like there's new things that are added that he keeps adding and adding and adding. And you know, when they're on the run and the main theme, or like the fellowship theme, when they're going over the rock, which is one of the most iconic images, right? And they're going over the mountains and everything. But then when they bring it back, when they're all safe and okay in the in the mines and they're running away, just it perfect. They know exactly when to use it, and it's this is the theme to get us moving, move the pace, move the journey. There's danger afoot. It's yeah, and then the flutes, using the flutes for the Shire, and knowing exactly that that's probably going to be moments when you're going to get really emotional, or Sam's going to say something and he's not going to be able to swim. And yeah, I mean, like, that score, you hear certain pieces of that music, and I'm a puddle, I'm a mess.
Yeah, it's such good use of leitmotif and assigned theme for characters. It's just really incredible stuff. And to the point where, props have themes and locations and characters. And it's a great way to cue the audience into here's how you need to feel at this moment, or here's what this needs to remind you of. And Howard Shore is, he was accomplished. He did Silence of the Lambs, obviously, leading up to this. But kind of similarly to Peter Jackson, I feel like he was not as established in terms of this level of filmmaking craft as, you might think they would want to get somebody like John Williams or something like that for this kind
Well,
of
Williams
movie.
was doing Harry Potter.
He was busy and he did a great job.
He did a great
But
job.
Howard Shore, I mean, he put everything into this movie.
He put a career into this movie, is what he
Honestly,
did.
it's
Well,
symphonic. It
his whole
is,
career in the
yeah.
21st century has been half like Lord of the Rings movies and Cronenberg stuff. Like
Yeah,
that's just kind of his career now. And
yeah.
then what did you do Spotlight?
I think so. I can
Yes, I think so.
I can double check that. Jay, what do you think about
But
the score?
no, I mean the score is unbelievable. It hits every moment correctly. And in a big, loud movie full of bravado and also that sincerity, the easiest way to make sincerity hit and make it feel more palatable to people, in my opinion, is to make the music. You can manipulate people with music so easily.
Yeah.
John Williams has made, he is the greatest film conductor of all time, film composer of all time, because he can absolutely manipulate you into feeling any way that he wants at any moment. Like E.T. could be a stupid movie about some dumb alien, but then you put John Williams music behind it and you're like, I'm never going to feel the same way about humanity or life or anyone I've ever loved ever again for the rest of my life. And this sort of has that to it, where when you want to feel dread and fear when you're looking at the Uruk-hai storming towards them, it really does kind of take this bomb, this very different tone. And then there's this light
Yeah.
airiness to when you're in Hobbiton, and this really somber notes in the moments that do make you feel incredibly emotional. And Ryan, to your point about like sometimes them just being nice to each other makes you cry. Nothing that
No,
is
yeah.
true. Like we talked about Nancy Myers, the intern. It's like this guy's so nice, man. Like I don't know what to do. Or I mean, that's the Paddington thing, right?
Yeah.
And in this film, that is compounded by this music that really just sets you up for the most heightened versions of emotion that the movie by itself is trying to establish.
Yeah. Don't worry, Jay. We're going to talk a lot about over the course of the next couple of weeks the multiple ways in which these movies make me cry. I don't know. Did it get you? Did it get you a couple times, buddy?
Gandalf. It got me when Gandalf. I think that was it though.
That was it. Cody, does it get you?
So I'm a tough sell. I literally have a list on Letterboxd called movies that made me cry because it's so few.
Hmm.
But this movie doesn't get me. Return of the King gets me,
Yeah,
and I think that's because
we won't
A, it's
spoil it.
maybe like
Yeah, no.
exhaustion, like
Yeah,
the end of
the,
the road. I won't say specifically where, but some moments in that really get to me.
there's like 10 moments in Return of the King.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
only gets worse as I get older.
It
The
really
world
does.
gets the
Like
world
I'm
gets
like, and the
harder.
world is getting more fucked up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
these movies, they know how to, yeah. And it's honestly, it's instant too. It's not even like, or it's like right when I know it's coming, I'm like, oh, and like, and I thought for years I thought, oh, okay, I'm beyond crying at Lord of the Rings, and now I just accept it. It's gonna be on. I'm gonna get emotional. There's like when Boromir's dying and Aragon, is there any and did it's Boromir's final words always get me. His sacrifice always kind of gets me there too. Um, Gandalf, Jay's absolutely right. When he dies,
Nah, when he dies and they're lingering on all of them on the stairs and the choir's gone, I'm telling you, choir is like,
well,
uh-oh.
even like Aragon, just like looking, he's just lingering. He's just waiting and hoping there for a second before you get outside.
Yeah.
Sam's the thing that gets me is because of Gandalf dying, and it really hit me harder even this time, was that I made a promise. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And that's Gandalf's words to him that he's repeating. And it just, oh God, now I'm going, ooh.
Yeah. Hold on now.
And, and it's, and that's the reason why Frodo allows them to go with him, is because Gandalf wanted me to keep you safe. And that's just the endearingness about Sam as a character, and understanding that you can't go on a journey like that alone. And then when Frodo looks at him and says, I'm glad you're here, realizing that going in alone on this journey would be a mistake. And and then there's just like the moment of like it's in tears, but it's like happy tears of Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli just being like, let's go hunt some orc. And you're like fists in the air. You're ready to run through a brick wall, but you're just an absolute, yeah. It's like the last 45 minutes of the movie are really just an absolute like gut punch.
I'm really coming onto the idea that like this is a film, this is a story in many ways about a lot of things. There's a lot of themes that can be easily applied to a lot of aspects of our world, which is what all fantasy and high fiction should do. The fact that it's called The Fellowship of the Ring and the fact that it focuses on the connections, the bonds that are necessary for goodness to thrive. And in strict contrast to that, you see such villainy outsized, but also internalized in like the bad guys' behavior. They are not, to sound simplistic, nice to each other. They are all operating on their own. If they are operating in unity, it is only for a nefarious goal. And you even see throughout the series a lot of infighting amongst like the orcs and the Uruk-hai, and there's no bond there. And I mean, this is, I guess, a spoiler, but whatever. And that's why they fail. That's why the good guys win and the bad guys do not.
Don't know if you knew that, Jay.
Yeah, sorry.
Um,
But
Jay's like, cancel the
Carry
other shows.
on.
but like to get grandiose and personal for a second, I think what I'm coming around to as I get older, in my mid 30s now, is like what life all is all about is the connections you make with others and how you use that to foster goodness in the world. And this is a story about that. This is a story about bonding together for a common goal. And yes, not every goal that we should have is as, elaborate or strange as throwing a piece of jewelry in a volcano, but coming together for the idea of goodness and achieving something close to communal harmony is really what life is all about. And this is a film about that. And I think that's part of why at the end of 11 hours of it, at the end of Return of the King, I'm so impacted by it because it's like, God damn it, they did it. It's a vision of a world that could be. And like, if only we had the humane unity to be able to accomplish something like that. And we occasionally do. But those moments are few and far between, which makes them even more precious.
No, that really is kind of the emotion that this movie elicits out of you. But I haven't finished the trilogy yet, kind of as an adult, but it does give you the sense of like these are people trying to do the good thing. And at the end of the film, even when they're like, we didn't achieve our goal, but let's pivot and now go find Pippin and Mary and do the best that we can do in the circumstances that are now presented to us.
And if we hold true to each other.
And it's especially crazy given that this is 2001, which I would consider to be maybe not peak irony, but pretty damn close.
We were cresting into it because this is still, we're 2 months after 9/11.
We're like this is right in between, like, so we're a little post Limp Bizkit a little bit.
Jesus.
We're before
checking off Limp Bizkit on my podcast bingo sheet. I knew you were going to bring it up.
You know what the number one album the day that this movie was released was?
What,
I just looked this up because I was just curious where the culture was at the moment.
What?
Weathered by Creed.
Oh man, well Creed has stood the test of time.
What was on Weathered?
Jay, did I ask you the would you rather?
That was probably
recently I think I asked you a would you rather recently, and Cody, I can ask you this on air. So me and the wife, we were driving the other day, and I did a would you rather listen to the entire discography of Nickelback, or would you rather listen to the entire discography of Creed? Now, if you pick Creed, because Creed only has 4 albums, Nickelback has like 10, you have to listen to that same amount of music.
You have to repeat it until you reach the full runtime of Nickelback's discography.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think I might just want to do the variety.
Yeah, but you also might just you might like Creed a lot and just want to go down that.
One of my worst takes is that I think Creed's One Last Breath is actually a pretty good song. So I actually think it's got a pretty wonderful guitar harmony to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know what is good or bad. Because I hear Nickelback and Creed and I hear some other music and I'm like, we decided that this is good and this is bad. I don't really understand. Maybe that makes me not discerning or not with a critical ear, or maybe that makes me an optimist. I don't know.
Which one would you pick?
Probably Nickelback for the reason of like I'd rather have
some variety.
Right, because I don't like repeating things that I don't like.
Okay.
I'm not gonna get the same ice cream flavor twice that I didn't like it.
Well, you don't know. You might like Creed.
Right, and then I'm like, one more time.
Exactly, like 2.5 more. It would be like 2.5 times. So
I think
I grew up
I would pick Creed
a
as
white boy in this era. I had my fair share of listening to this music. I know what I'm in for. And I honestly, if you played me as one of their songs that was not one of their hits, I'd probably not be able to tell the difference between the
Jay
two
was
bands.
rocking Creed CDs in his bus on the way to school every day.
I love doing a Creed impression. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, you want to do it on the show?
Yeah, you're not allowed to close your words with consonants.
Or
open your mouth.
Home and now.
I'm 6 feet.
I mean, they're basically what they were doing was like
Eddie Vedder.
Yeah, they're doing Pearl Jam.
Yeah, they're doing
You're
Pearl
both.
Jam.
I need the listeners to understand. They're both making this same exact face when they sing. I think it's essential to the impression. Is the facial expression required? The musculoskeletal requirements.
Yeah. We really are doing. I'm just watching it on James.
I'm not joking.
I will tell you this. 2 years ago, or a couple of years, yeah, I guess it was 2 years ago at this time. I went to Toronto. I went to TIFF for the first time, and Nickelback, Canadian band, they had a documentary there, and they did a concert outside, like 2 blocks away from the theater I was at. It was so fucking loud. You would have thought they were singing the Canadian national anthem at like a hockey game. Like they were 2 blocks away, and it was the echo. I could hear the music as if it was like in my ear right now. That's how crazy it was.
Creed has apparently had an unbelievably successful tour
this year,
2024. Yeah.
Oh, and you didn't want to go?
We actually almost did.
Did you really?
Please
tell me your
father-in-law wanted to go.
Really? Well, that's not surprising given your father-in-law's taste in film.
I love my father-in-law to death, but yeah, he's not exactly, you know.
This is the guy that watches the Snyder films and
Any Netflix garbage,
any
I know I'm
Netflix
gonna end up
garbage.
watching eventually with him.
So, and he
Love
was
the man.
he
Great
was
man.
he was a game for the Creed concert.
No, he wasn't game for Creed. He was excited to go to a Creed concert.
Why?
He likes Creed.
He likes
Let the
Creed.
man like
Okay,
Creed.
all right.
The
Well,
man
Come on.
like it.
I
Let
didn't
the
know
man
how
like
did he?
Creed.
Did you ever ask him like a follow? Like, how did he stumble upon Creed? Or
Just listen to Creed.
these are going to be
Creed
questions.
finds you. You don't really find Creed.
You know what, Cody? That's fair. That's very
Yeah.
fair.
I don't know. I'm at the point where I'm like, if a man, a middle-aged man, is not listening to Joe Rogan, God bless, like whatever he wants to listen to.
No,
Could be
no,
Ben
I
Shapiro.
do not. I no, those are two names. Well, Jay listens to both of them.
Oh yeah,
But
big
yeah.
time. Ben's coming on the pod for
No,
Two Towers.
no, oh, Jesus Christ. No, not
Lovely Bones. Yeah.
No. Oh my God. Could you imagine a Lovely Bones conversation with him? No, Jesus Christ. Anything else you guys want to mention about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings that we haven't covered? I feel like we've covered a lot, but I mean, there's still so much that you could cover. Jay?
I'm sure there is. We barely talked Bean.
Well, I talked about Bean. What do you think about Bean?
I think he's great.
Yeah.
I think he's actually one of the more interesting characters in this particular movie.
Yeah.
I love this series' thoughts on humanity, like man.
Yeah. And how we're fucked up.
Cynical. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only bit of cynicism in the movie is
Yeah. It's like
his
men
cynicism towards
suck.
humanity.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Men will
Continue.
inevitably
But he's like, yeah, we know.
men will give in to their innate selfishness at the expense of the rest of existence. And yes, you're right, Cody. That is kind of like the only malignant element of the movie to a certain extent, at least when it comes to our heroes. It really becomes Aragorn's greatest obstacle is his blood or his ancestry,
His lineage.
and I think that's really powerful.
Well, then also too, you just see how easily manipulative the ring can call or be to man. Obviously, through the opening with Isildur, but when in the extended edition, more or less than in the theatrical, you see Boromir's sort of temptation at the council meeting, right there a little bit, and Gandalf has to call him off there. You see it throughout the film. Especially particularly one of the coolest shots in movie history when they're on the mountain and the ring falls and Boromir has to pick it up. And Jay, you do know that they had to build that for that shot. They had to build a giant ring, right? Like it wasn't just like a shot of the small ring in the ice. It was a
love that.
giant
Oh my God.
We used to be
ring
a
the
proper
size of
industry.
the size of your head for
Why is that
one
so
shot.
thrilling to me?
Yeah.
It's like when they built that mailbox on the pier
For the Insider? Yes,
Yep, yep,
exactly.
Incredible stuff.
No, wasn't that Michael Mann's actual mailbox or no? They just it was
Or
like
it was
on
like
his home
lake or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
it was like at his home or
It was on
whatever.
some pier somewhere.
Exactly, but that shows
that.
in that scene, which is I know I when I find out every little thing about Lord of the Rings, still to this day, it just
Nothing
excites
more
me.
thrilling than when they're like they overdid it for a movie.
Whoa,
The majesty.
exactly. But then that's Jay, to your point, it builds that tension between Aragon and Boromir, and not necessarily what's just right for the ring, but honestly the future of Gondor, right? Seeing that this threat of an heir of a king is alive, and you see that he has mixed reactions throughout, and whether that's because of the ring's influence or not, we see throughout the film, like their conversation when they're in the woodland elves and they're talking about riding into battle together is the best of Boromir, as opposed to then when he's under the spell of the ring and saying that he will fail and that they need to take it back to Gondor. And Bean's performance in this he's incredible in this movie.
What I love about Sean Bean is that we all looked at his name and knew exactly how to pronounce it, even though it is the same word twice with different starting consonants. There's no reason that we all should have looked at that name and went, got it, and we did.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
I love
I have
that
a
they
few more
pull.
things just to. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cody.
I just got a few notes if we're just wrapping
Oh,
up our
yeah.
thoughts. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I love the Silence of the Lambs fake out sequence with the wraiths when they're stabbing the hobbits in the bed.
Oh man, that's so cool and terrifying.
Yeah,
The shot of the barkeep
Starling.
under the bar or by the door or whatever.
Yeah,
Like, it's truly terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, this movie's gonna kill everybody like off like that quickly.
well, that's another thing that
smart
makes
move.
it so magical. Is it is 20% more violent than you think it's going to be.
Yeah, and yet it's also like a movie that the whole family can go enjoy.
Like you can maybe see, you can imagine somebody's head getting cut off in one of these movies, but
We
this
literally
gives it an
see someone's head get cut off.
Yeah, but
Like,
then there's also just like a little squirt of blood that you
Yeah.
might not otherwise see, and it's that kind of detail that adds
Yeah.
to again that tactility, the viscerality of it all.
you know who we haven't talked about at all? It's Merry and Pippin.
I mentioned them very briefly, and I said, "Okay, cool."
Their time will
R2D2.
come. I think you'll have a lot more to say about them later.
Yeah, that's for sure. But Jay,
In this one, I frankly find Pippin kind of annoying, which I know is the point.
son of a, it's really
He's kind of
He really
it's just
sells
a
out
problem
Frodo at the
character,
bar.
which is hard.
yeah,
for
he
me.
really sells out Frodo at the bar. They're the ones that are stealing the vegetables and get themselves into that mess in the first place.
He knocks over the
Mary
helmet
is
and-
Charlie, correct?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
From Lost.
Yes.
Yes, he is the actor.
Yes, he is.
Correct.
Dominic
Yes.
What is
I was trying to
Like
figure
Monaghan.
out what you were talking about there for a second. Yes. Yeah, which is
not Penny's boat.
not Penny's.
Not
Yeah.
Penny's
Oh, damn it, Jay! Come on, don't get me sad. God,
Remember that? That was good.
I love that show.
Good
Cody,
show.
did you watch Lost?
Oh yeah, that was a pandemic watch, and I finished it.
Oh.
And I went, "Oh, the ending's good. You're all wrong about this."
The ending is incredible. It's an incredible ending, and it's also like, it's like people are so stupid. Like they don't understand that. Like
That is my takeaway, unfortunately.
It
like,
really
I don't have
is,
that
like-
opinion a lot, but I watched that. I'm like, you guys are dumb. If you
Yeah.
watch 6 seasons of this and you're mad that this is the conclusion, you're
like this,
dumb.
like imagine like watching the Lost finale and watching the finale of like something like Game of Thrones and getting fucking mad at the Lost one. It's like they're not on
People
the
get mad at both, to be
you
fair.
know, I mean, you could get mad at both to be fair, but
Yeah.
the Lost one is just like it also has an earnestness a little bit to it as well, and it's
That's probably what people didn't like about it.
Extremely.
exactly, and also it didn't. It's also that was a show much like most of Damon Lindelof stuff didn't fully explain everything. It doesn't have to, and didn't explain it like yelling it in a megaphone to people.
My biggest gripe: what the hell was going on with Walt?
Well, they explained that.
Not really.
Well, you have to watch the. Sadly, you have to watch the. There's a deleted scene in the season 6 box set that you have to watch, and you basically find out that Walt becomes Jacob.
What the hell? That wasn't in the show.
Yeah, it was really stupid that wasn't in the show. It was like
Wow.
they explained the polar
It's really
bears.
stupid in the first place.
Well,
but-
Ben Linus like Ben says he has. You know,
All
when
right,
Ben's
that's
like,
enough.
Jay's like, shut up.
Enough.
You don't need to know all this stuff about it as well. I know way too
We've
much.
been
about
actually
it.
on track today, Ryan.
What? I'm just letting you know about Lost and how Ben doesn't go to he's kind of stays in purgatory and helps. His duty is to help Walt there on the island and shepherd in the new era of the island and keep it safe. So that's all I
Polar
wanted to
bears.
say.
Go
And,
there.
and the polar bears were explained and yeah. So there you go. You're welcome.
show.
It was a
Week
great
to, as
show.
far as week to week viewing goes, that was elite stuff.
We don't get great week to week stuff anymore unless it's an HBO show or the pit, which was great. Did you watch the pit?
I watched the first episode. I liked it.
Okay.
TV's hard for me
And you said
It's
the
just-
pit, ain't it?
so much.
I will say you got to get in I got behind on a couple episodes on that, Cody, and I got into a rhythm with it, and then once I got into the rhythm, I got into it.
I still haven't watched it.
But it's really good. I really do.
I
do.
will watch it. I'm saying
Yeah.
this on air For
he
legal
will watch
reasons,
it.
I'm now
Yeah.
held accountable.
I would also like it on the record. Did not like the White Lotus finale. Thought it was
Finale.
bad.
Oh,
Never seen any of it.
wow.
So
I'm on
There
record
you go.
also not liking that the season 3 finale of the White Lotus or the studio at all.
Yeah,
So,
you're anti-studio.
yeah,
is that show done yet? Did it finish?
I don't think it has. I mean, not to brag as a critic, you get to see a lot of screeners ahead of time and everything, and I saw it all, and it's not very good, and da 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 da.
Watched it with Kate Blanchett's dad.
Yeah, he was mixed on it as well, weirdly enough. Any final thoughts on Fellowship of the Ring?
Yeah, we cut Cody off. Cody had stuff.
Yeah, he had stuff. No, we didn't cut him off. To be clear, you cut him off.
Ryan, you cut Cody off so
my God.
hard.
I'm sorry,
It's
Cody.
unbelievable.
I'm sorry, Cody. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Cody. Final thoughts.
Anyway, I love that the hobbits are stoners, and it's made very clear.
They're all about ripping clouds.
There's a
Yeah.
great scene. Well, that's a little different. Hold on now. There's a great scene where right before the party, Gandalf and Bilbo are just like sitting on a bench smoking weed. And like the sun is setting and they're blowing smoke rings. And this is an overused term, but like it is a vibe. And it's great. And then later Saruman says to Gandalf, "Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind." So it's like, this isn't tobacco. This is weed. They are getting absolutely blazed in Hobbiton, and good for them.
Yeah, I love that as well. I love that they're like, I love the fireworks, like that these hobbits are so small and simple and allowing this wizard to continue to come. And also you get, that's the great thing about like, why, okay, this is going to be my thesis. Lord of the Rings in this movie and the extendeds, they do a good enough job of giving you everything you need when it comes to the Hobbit without ever actually having to make those movies ever. And in this, when Gandalf arrives and he's talking with Frodo, and when he's talking with Frodo, he's talking to him about the last time he was there and the reputation that he's had from the Shire, from from the Adventures of the Hobbit and causing trouble in his time there. But then everybody knows about his fireworks and his love for this, and then it's interesting to then see, and this has always kind of been a nitpick or a bug of that, like his love and affection for the hobbits is what clouded his judgment or like intrigue about the ring, right? And that the ring has been in the Shire this entire time. And then like Gandalf's like, yeah, you can't take these magic rings. You got to be careful with these things. And it's just like, hey, dude, why does he have a magic ring? Why is your friend 111 years old? I actually thought Saruman's point was absolutely on par when he was just like, you have let your love for these little people just absolutely cloud your judgment in seeing that the ring of power is amongst these hobbits. And then he didn't even know like the story about the ring. And in the book, it's like years. He spends years looking up this information. Yeah. In the movie, it's like a couple months. And it's so like, that's always the funnier. That's like the thing about it, fantasy, but also the fact that the movie takes itself seriously, right? And all this is serious. But as a fan, it's very silly of like, come on, Gandalf, you're better than this. Like you're a very wise guy. Quit smoking weed and hanging with your buddy and drinking and realize that this is there, buddy. You know what I mean?
I do think that is like a problem is a strong word, but I think it's the discrepancy between the Hobbit book and Lord of the Rings books it is such a leap in terms of maturity of tone and purpose. And I think that is kind of a byproduct of it, where it's like this one thing that's carrying over Bilbo and the Ring and Gandalf. And in the Hobbit, it can be a bit
more playful,
frivolous, and just like one more part of the adventure. And in this, they're imbuing it with such power that it does seem a little weird that Gandalf was just like, yeah, put it in your pocket.
Yeah, just just don't bring it around. Don't bring it out around public. And around company. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, to be clear, but sure, I'll give it that.
Also, too, like the jump scare of him like touching it and seeing like the Eye of Sauron, nothing. You needed to go look up like books of that? Okay, just kind of.
I mean, that could have been anything.
Yeah, well, there's clearly only one Dark Lord, and he's like literally above a tower. But like, sure.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I think that's like right after the party though. Maybe he was still a little,
Maybe he was like, wow, man, I
what the
smoked
hell
so
is
much,
that?
and
Yeah.
did I see Sauron last night? Oh my
We've all
god,
smoked a little too much and seen the Eye of the Dark Lord. It happens. It happens.
every time. Jay, any final thoughts on Fellowship of the Ring?
It's very funny when we get a wide shot of everyone and the hobbits are clearly 8-year-olds.
Yes. Or different people entirely.
Yeah, or just exactly. Like they don't even like when Sam, like when you hear when he's like, hurry along, Samwise, and that's clearly not Sean.
It's a different man.
Sean Astin at all. Like that is a different human being altogether. I have to say, for extended editions wise, Cody, you're a big fan of the extended editions. I know that. I know you watched theatrical for this, right?
I've watched them more, but that's more because I've usually been in group settings of people who want to marathon
Oh, so
them.
you've been like forced.
I watched the theatrical, which I don't think I've watched in maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
I think extended Two Towers is a reason enough for them to exist.
Yeah.
I think what the things that they add to the Two Towers are borderline essential, especially a lot of the stuff of Faramir or Boromir.
Mm-hmm.
I think otherwise I can kind of take or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really a ton I felt like I was like, oh wait, where's that great scene I love watching the theatrical one of this one. Return of the King, I probably would still do extended because it's like the summation of the journey, but I'm fine with theatrical for this one.
I will tell you this, like I watched both, and because I've watched extended so many times,
Yeah.
when I'm watching theatrical now, I can tell the difference, and scenes are cut, and I don't know. I've kind of now just been like, okay,
there are 6 truly new scenes with a lot of extra texture to stuff.
Yeah,
Sure.
and some scenes that feel like that they're a little bit stretched as well too, and I feel like I've just come accustomed to that, and that's my version. But I also love the theatricals as well too. I will tell you this: this has one of the best cutoff points ever in a intermission style split a movie in two I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, when the fellowship is established.
The fellowship is established, and we get Pippin. All right, where are we going? And then it cuts, and then the second disc, and you're like, holy shit, that's perfect. Like that is a perfect cut.
I forgot to mention the one part that I don't know if I cried, but like gets me in this movie the most is shortly before that moment when Frodo breaks the argument that's happening amongst everybody. What are we gonna do? You take the ring. A man should do it. An elf should do it. And he just says he will take it. And it cuts to a close up of Ian McKellen's face.
Oh, of Gandalf when he's like closing his eyes.
Oh my God, it is incredible acting from Ian McKellen. You just see him. It's a mix of so many things. It's a mix of Frodo, don't do it. It's a mix of that's why I like the Hobbits. That's why I stick with them. And it's a mix of knowing that he basically just announced his own death.
Yeah.
Because the thing I always forget is that Frodo was just tasked with getting the ring to Rivendell at first. And then from there, the journey gets extended. They get overtime. And so he's locking himself into this fate there. And Frodo probably knows that. Gandalf definitely knows that. And the face he makes is it just sells so much of that moment. I love it. That gets to me. And it's why Ian McKellen gets nominated for Oscar for this and should have won.
Exactly. Jay?
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, on Cody's lovely note,
just got a little help.
Yeah, we're going to test your award season knowledge based on the film we just reviewed.
No, I did not know that.
Lord of the Rings.
Thank you.
The Fellowship of the Ring. In a segment we like to call "It's an Honor to Get Nominated." This will be a conversation. Now, Jay, up to this point, Peter Jackson's only been nominated for one, but you know this better than anybody. Lord of the Rings were not just a big hit at the box office, which, to be clear, did not mention that this movie was a $93 million budget. It made $887 million, which is
a lot of
They basically paid for the whole
for a
trilogy,
3-hour movie.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if movies are good and they have a pace, people will see them regardless of runtime. I always, the runtime police are out there. They're always trying to say movies can't be long. And it's like, well, if they're as engaging as Lord of the Rings, they can make just as much. You know what I mean?
How many of the top 25 movies at the box office of all time are over 2 hours? I would hazard to say most of them.
I would
You
probably
know?
say like
Over 2 hours? Yeah.
over
Yeah.
2 hours, probably like 60%, 70% maybe.
You name me a 90-minute movie that made $1 billion.
Well, now I've got to look this up.
Probably
Maybe some Pixar.
animated.
I'm saying this and I'm like, maybe some Pixar movies, Frozen
Something
possibly.
animated.
Live action. I'm gonna be annoying.
Movies
Let's look it up. Look
of
it
all
up.
time.
Look
Now,
it.
We're all
Cody's
looking it
putting a
up.
game within a
We're all
game
Googling.
here.
What was Titanic? Like
$1 billion.
Okay,
105?
so the number one film at the box office all time is Avatar.
A Vader. Yes.
Avengers Endgame's number 2.
That is longy.
Are
Yes.
you looking at worldwide or
I'm looking at worldwide.
okay?
Okay. Overall. Way of Water's number 3. That's a 3-hour movie. Titanic 4. Force Awakens 5. Infinity War 6. No Way Home 7. Nisa 2, which I don't
No
even
Way
know.
Home was 2.5 hours.
I don't even know what this is.
Yes.
I think it's an international.
It's a Chinese
film.
animated film.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's 2 hours and 23 minutes. Inside Out 2 is
Okay, Inside Out 2, 96 minutes.
96 minutes. Okay, so that's
Fine.
one.
But it's animated.
Yeah, that's
Doesn't
one.
count.
Jurassic World is 10.
That's over 2 hours.
11 is The Lion King,
Which of course is live
The
action.
new one,
the 2019.
that's
yes.
118 minutes. So
Yeah, it's 150.
also animated.
15.
it's animated. It's
ourselves.
just like what Disney wants you to think.
The Avengers is 12. Furious 7 is 13. Top Gun Mavericks 14. Frozen 2 is 15. Barbie is 16.
Barbie under 2 hours.
Barbie's the one. So Barbie's,
Yep.
but it's 114 minutes. It's almost there. My point is,
Yeah, you got to be around 2
people
hours.
will show up, and I think honestly, that is the studio's idea. Is if you're paying this much money and we want this movie to make a lot of money, we have to make something that is worth the investment of the dollar. And if you're looking at a ticket price for a long movie, it has a subliminal subconscious weight to it.
Mm-hmm.
Weight, WEIGHT.
Yep.
So yeah, all this to say, people who are freaking out about long run times, I think, I don't really care.
By the way, just to finish the top 20, 18 Super Mario Brothers movie animated.
Cool.
19 is the Beauty and the Beast live action remake, and number 20, which is Jay's favorite movie of all time, by the way, and number 20 is Black Panther.
Great.
Moana 2, a film that just felt like it came and went like a passing breeze.
But it made
44th highest grossing movie of all time.
It made a
terrible
shit ton
movie.
of money.
It is so bad.
A direct-to-video film.
You know what's
Jay.
even wilder? Frozen 2 made more than Frozen, and nobody talks about it. I even liked Frozen 2, but the impact
Frozen 2 is
culturally,
weird.
Frozen 2
It is
look
weird.
It's a weird movie. Jay,
I like that.
Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Big film
Yes.
at the box office.
Big
film-
Oscar movie.
Big Oscar movie.
Oh yeah.
So Cody did help
Here
you
we go.
with one.
I would not have gotten that. I would have said no acting Oscars.
So
Are you gonna tell him how many nominations it got?
nope. Not gonna
Okay.
not gonna
I'm
help
start-
him out at all.
I'm
He's
going to
on
start
his
below
own.
the line.
He's the expert around here.
I am. Visual effects,
That is correct. That is a win.
editing,
That is correct.
screenplay,
Adapted screenplay. It was nominated.
costumes,
Yes, it got Stooms.
makeup,
Yes, it won Best Makeup,
production design,
which was Best Art Direction at the time. Yes.
cinematography,
Yes, and it won Best Cinematography.
sound,
Best Sound. Yes.
which at this point was just one award.
Was just one. No. Which one was it, Cody?
There are two
And it
categories.
only
at
got
this
one.
point. One it was nominated for. If you're saying sound as in sound mixing, yes.
Well, I
By the way, I'm
have.
doing
That's
this
what
off the top of my
I meant
head.
mixing.
So
I am looking. Hang on one second. Yes,
what.
the mixing at the time was just called best sound. Best sound editing was called that at the time. Sorry, Cody. So best sound
I
mixed.
was
but
talking
mixed.
specifically about the mixing. I thought that was excellent.
Yes, that is nominated.
Okay, so is there anything else below the line?
Yes,
Oh my God.
you're missing like a big one. No, or like two.
Yeah.
Two big ones?
One big one that we talked about.
Oh, score.
Score, which won the Oscar.
Good win. Good win.
You
All right, then I'm gonna just take a break and go above the line then.
Well,
Okay.
hold on.
well,
I'll come back. I'll circle back to it.
Okay.
we'll circle back.
Picture,
Yep.
director,
Yep.
supporting actor,
Yep.
and I'm guessing that's it. And I only have the one left.
Correct. I don't know if he's going to get this, Cody. This is a tough
You
one.
don't think I'm gonna get
very
it because
few that it could be at this point.
I
Yes.
know I'm trying to think of what award am I not thinking of?
It was nominated. It only. Never mind. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna give it away.
Like it's clearly just a category that I'm blanking on.
It's only eligible for
existing.
this of the three films. For this category, for Fellowship specifically, it will
No,
not
that's
be
not true.
this song.
Oh,
Oh shit!
Oh.
Damn it, Cody! Damn it! Well, there you go.
Like no, there's
no,
there's other
this is
songs.
damn it! All right, Inya's song got nominated.
I wouldn't
Yes.
have gotten that. Yeah.
There's no
The
way.
weird thing about this nomination hall is that it gets in basically everywhere it possibly could, except for sound editing, which is so weird.
Which
Which
only had two nominees. Yeah,
Is that Monsters Inc. wins?
Maybe
that
they
was
should have edited their sound better.
I guess so.
I think it was Monster Inc. Let me just.
That category was doing some weird things back then.
It was Pearl
Monsters Inc.
Harbor.
wins Pearl Harbor. Okay.
Harbor
Monsters Inc. 's
won.
nominated.
Yes, and it was just the two in the category, which was kind of
So
dumb.
weird. What's up with that? What's up with that?
I don't know. I didn't.
If it gets that nomination, it ties the all-time record.
It would have, but it
Probably
was
should've.
it was the leader on the morning. 13. The next films that were close were Moulin Rouge with 8, and A Beautiful Mind, which went on to win Best Picture, Jay, with 8. This is the year of A Beautiful Mind winning. This is the Ron Howard makeup year. Gosford Park, In the Bedroom, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and Moulin Rouge are your nominees alongside it. This, Jay, of course, is the infamous Anyone But Ron Howard Award for Best Director.
Yep.
This was the Ridley Scott for Black Hawk Down, Robert Altman for Gosford Park, Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and David Lynch for Mulholland Drive.
I think Big Ron earned that one.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's real. And honestly, I would give the award to David Lynch. Like,
Yes.
It's
Like,
crazy.
honestly, like Jackson and Lynch are like the epitome of great direction. One being able to pull off this monumental feat,
And the vision.
and the vision, and then the singular vision of David Lynch being able to pull off something like Mulholland Drive, one of the coolest nominations ever. There's a great shot of Ron Howard winning Best Director, and a shot in the crowd of the two greats of Robert Altman and David Lynch hugging each other.
That'd be a fun hang.
That I think
Lynch
that
and Altman.
yeah, just hang out, have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie with
Yeah.
them.
I hope they're hanging out in the big
75 cigarettes.
So much cigarette smoke.
for David Lynch alone.
McKellen lost to Jim Broadbent for Iris, a film that nobody fucking talks about.
That's one of those wins though, where it's like for Iris parentheses and Moulin Rouge. You know, it's
For Iris and your whole career. You
right.
know? And it was also Ethan Hawke for Training Day, Ben Kingsley for Sexy Beast, which is a great nomination.
That's cool.
And then Jay's guy, John Voight for Ali,
Being Hollywood.
King of Hollywood. But yeah,
I like that performance. In
He's
LA.
good in that movie.
It's
he's
like
good in the
crazy.
movie.
I didn't
just say
recognize
that
him for the
because
first like 5 minutes of his
I just say that
performance.
because Jay and him align very much politically.
He's in the what's it called?
What? Megalopolis?
No, the Hollywood.
Oh, he's like in the Trump threesome.
Yeah,
Oh
whatever
yeah,
it's
him
called.
and Stallone and
Mel Gibson.
right.
You know, they gave Mel Gibson his gun rights back, so he
Thank
can.
thank
He
God.
wasn't allowed to have a gun.
No, he
Hmm.
wasn't. And then Trump got it back for him. So,
What about Alec Baldwin?
well, well, that movie's actually coming out.
It's
You know
coming
that?
out. Yeah, the
It
trailer.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jay, you want to
they put the trailer
review
out.
it for the site?
Oh God.
No, we will not touch that at all. The film won
Sometimes you just can go, you know what? Nobody's gonna
pass.
see a movie.
You know,
We're gonna not
oh, I'm
release it.
sure some websites will cover it.
Can
You
I
know what I mean?
interview?
I
Can
meant
I
more
inter?
like don't even release it. Like, what's the?
Oh no, I'm sure some people will cover it, try to interview him.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they fucking did that with Jonathan Majors. All these ding dongs out there fucking interviewing him. What the fuck's wrong with them?
Can I interview Alec Baldwin, but for the TV show? What's it called? Meet the Baldwins.
You want to do the for the
I want to do
reality
it
show
for that. I don't want to do it for the movie. I want to do it for Meet the Baldwins
and just talk about his like day to day life?
and just talk about like, do you need money or something, man? Like, what's going on?
The film won cinematography, best makeup, original score, and best visual effects. Jay, would you have given it anything else? Oh,
If
for
I'm looking
wins?
at the noms here, I mean, I'm giving it to McKellen. Come on,
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
It's either
I'm
him
giving
or-
it based off the noms. I'm giving it picture.
Me
Yeah?
too.
Yeah,
I do
like
picture, but
Gosford
not
Park a lot.
director.
I
Yeah.
do like In the Bedroom, but I would give it to Fellowship of the nominees. But obviously, if I was giving a best picture this year, it would be Mulholland Drive. Like,
Yeah,
it's not even a question. Like that
I agree.
movie's a
It's
masterpiece.
also it is so easy for Oscar nerds like us to kind of defer a lot of the wins to Return of the King, which is what the Academy did. Especially knowing that 2003 is like a weaker year than 2001.
I don't know if I necessarily would have done that the next year, but you know, we'll talk about that
No,
next
if I'm
episode.
giving,
Chicago is a masterpiece. I would
I,
give that a lot of the awards.
That's fair. I mean, Chicago has one of the greatest snubs I think in my lifetime, which was that Richard Gere should have been nominated, and the fact that he wasn't is ridiculous.
if I'm expanding supporting actor out to everybody, I'm going Billy Ray Cyrus. Mulholland Drive.
Oh,
Great
another one of your guys.
I just saw it in theaters 2 days ago. They're doing a David Lynch festival here at one of the art houses.
It's
And when
awesome.
Billy Ray Cyrus shows up, it really is like a grim passageway that opens in the movie because at that point the audience started laughing and they did not stop laughing the entire rest of the movie. It was one of those rep screenings where they were just laughing the whole time.
People were
And
just
Oh
like-
God, those are
the
brutal.
worst, the worst. They chilled out once we go into the blue box and things get real grim,
Man.
but it was rough. And I blame Billy Ray Cyrus.
I saw that in a theater probably a month or so ago. Incredible stuff.
It's
It was not
maybe my favorite
populated
movie.
enough for me to notice the real tenor of the audience at large, but I had a great time.
Would you guys have given Fellowship of the Ring adapted screenplay? The nominees are Ghost World, In the Bedroom, Fellowship of the Ring, Shrek. The winner was A Beautiful Mind.
I hear you say Shrek.
I said Shrek.
I would.
Yeah.
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 I think the only awards I don't give it are director, which I get to Mulholland Drive. And then I'm looking at I have a big nerdy document here of my own picks.
Man. This
And
is
then
your-
I would give film editing and costumes to Moulin Rouge, and it wins costumes.
Yeah. What was
But other than
edit-
that, everything else goes to Fellowship.
what one editing?
Black Hawk Down, I think, off the top of my head.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
Black Hawk
correct.
Down.
Honestly, I would have given the editing to Memento.
This category is great. And then
That's
yeah,
a
A
great.
Beautiful
Yeah.
Mind is
And then
there.
A Beautiful Mind's there again.
I
That's
don't even
one-
hate A Beautiful Mind, but it's just like really,
It's
this?
the most dry, generic
It's just like fine.
film that they could go
Excuse
for.
me. The Accountant, best live action short film starring
Who?
Walton Goggins.
Oh, well, there you go. What's it
A
about?
young Walton Goggins,
All
who
right.
probably still looked 50.
You know what Walton Goggins is in? If you watch it, because I recently rewatched the trilogy, he is in The Bourne Identity. He plays one of the guys that's like at the keyboards there with like Chris Cooper talking in the background.
Oh, does he get to go? Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne.
He's one of the guys that would be able to go like, Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne. Yeah. Those movies are good. They're good movies. I like them.
All right, this is actually astounding how similar he looks 25 years ago.
Crazy. Jay, you would have gone Lynch for director
Yeah.
over Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Though I love Gosford Park
Bob's already got like 3 in the J.Skers
and
universe.
the Jaskers. I gotta give Moulin Rouge a rewatch. I'm not a big fan of it. I've been
It was
wanting.
a big movie for me in high school. Like my friends watched it a lot. Do you know what I mean? One of those movies.
But you're not a Boz man,
No, I'm not. But
a
I want.
Bosman.
But
You're
I
not a
want.
lure man?
I'm not a lure man. But I want to be. Like I feel like his. I feel like he makes movies that are very distinct and original and his
Sure does.
own. You know what I mean? Like and I admire the shit out of that. I just wish that. And I mean, they're completely excess. Like they're giant and huge and like loud. And some of them work and some of them don't. I don't know. That would kind of be a fun series down the road, maybe.
That would be a good one for director
That'd be a
watch.
very
It's
fun one.
short too. It's only
Yeah.
6. Do you
Oh.
like Romeo plus Juliet?
I do.
I love it. I
I
think it's
do.
my favorite. And I've seen a lot of Shakespeare. I studied Shakespeare in college. I've seen a lot of movies of Shakespeare. I think it's my favorite film adaptation of a Shakespeare
I gotta
text.
tell you this, and I know this is maybe going to sound crazy, but like when I was in theaters, when it was in theaters, I liked Australia. I thought it
It's
was like
fine.
for what it was.
Well, you should
it was-
check out the extended television
Oh,
series
Fairway Downs?
on Hulu. On Hulu.
Yeah, I
I
should.
heard that's pretty good.
I probably will never watch it.
I'm not gonna watch it.
But if
Exactly.
but if we did that for a serious, yeah, I'd probably have to put on that for sure.
You know, if I
Um,
didn't like, I think I gave Australia like a 5 out of 10. If I gave it like a 2, I'd be more intrigued to watch the miniseries. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna watch
yeah,
a longer
because if
version of
it's
the
like
movie. I'm like,
bad,
this
you
is
want to like you're
okay.
more because you can like
Right.
make a cocktail and enjoy yourself.
Sure.
You can get through it. You know what I mean? This is your Royal Tenenbaums. This is your Denzel wins. Halle Berry wins. Would you guys nominate anybody else in the cast for Lord of the Rings for this film? Would you do Blanchett?
I might do Blanchett.
Who did you
I'd have
kick
to look
out?
at the whole year.
So
Who did
this
I
is
kick out? Let's see.
This is Connolly who wins.
She's pretty
Helen
good.
Mirren, Maggie Smith,
Talk about
Gosford Park,
Connolly.
Marissa Tomei in the bedroom, who's
Marissa
great.
Tomei, who's my winner. Kate
And
Winslet and
then
Iris.
she can
couldn't-
go.
Sorry.
That's a
Bye,
bad.
bye,
yeah.
Kate.
This is if we throw Blanchett in there, we got an important person. I mean, this is like a Hall of Fame lineup.
You love I mean Jennifer Connelly, right? And then Marissa Tomei. This is big for Jay right now. It's a good film year. It's a good film year.
Yeah, it is.
And Cody,
Yep.
that's it. We're gonna have to go our separate ways, the three of us, because the
The party
episode's
and the
over.
fellowship.
I'm going to
The first-
Mordor.
You're going to Mordor. Where
Ryan's
am I
been
going?
kidnapped by the Uruk-hai,
Hate when that happens.
and now you have to go find Ryan.
Cody has to find me.
Yeah.
But you know what, Cody? Where can we find you and all your work on the
Oh.
internet? And also,
Nice.
where can
Pretty
you?
good.
Where can you give our listeners a recommendation of the week before we get out of here?
Sure. I can be found. What the hell? I can be found. I don't know what just happened.
My
I can be
transition
found-
really messed him up.
I literally looked out my window. My mind just evaporated. I can be found all over the internet, every horrible social media site at Cody Monster 91. My writing is all over the place, podcasting all over the place. And recommendation, it doesn't have to be a movie, right?
It can be a TV show. It can be anything. It could be music.
anything.
It could be a book. It could be something in your life. It could
Yeah,
be
you
anything.
found on your car today.
Yeah.
I know I don't have a car. I've never had a car for 10 years because I live in a walkable city.
Smart.
But
move.
yes, I agree.
You live in
But
Hobbiton.
I live in Hobbiton.
Well, that's just mean. I
With
mean,
their
just
leaf or whatever it's
because
called.
Cody's smaller than us, Jay. That's just not nice to say.
hell?
I don't know. Anyway, continue, Cody.
I am quite a short man, it's true. Anyway, I moved recently, and so I've spent a lot of time unpacking and stuff. So I haven't had time to watch things necessarily, although I did find time to watch Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of listening. and I listened to the audiobook of the new Hunger Games book, Sunrise on the Reaping, which I thought would be just kind of okay, and it ended up being kind of incredible, like
Wow.
really good, and maybe my favorite of the entire series. Really, really dark and cynical, and it feels very appropriate for the world we're in right now. So, but don't read it if you haven't read the other four, in which case you probably already know this book exists, so this is kind of a wasted recommendation. But if you were not sure if you want to read it, give it a go. I liked it.
I think they're going to do the movie. I think what is it,
It's
like
already in production.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Charlie Plummer is playing young Haymitch, or who's
Sure.
playing? Yeah,
That sounds
somebody's
about
doing
right.
it. Somebody is
I don't
Francis
know.
Lawrence directing that one
Yes, he
too.
is. Yeah. It
God, that.
basically got greenlit in conjunction with the book coming
Frankie.
out. It's one of those.
Oh, okay. Man, he's like connected to that one. Like, who is it? David Yates for Potter. I think
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
that's
very
like
much the
It's like because
same.
they tried to do something else and it didn't work, and they were like,
nope. Or
"Yes,
stuck
this
here.
is me."
Yeah, I
I
heard
think
that.
that series is pretty good.
Yeah, the Hunger Games. Like they give good movies, like decent movies. Like
None of them are like disasters. The
no,
worst one
even the
is the last one, not
and
the
that
most recent last one, the last one of
the
the original
last movie.
series.
Yeah,
The
but
last
the
one of
last
the Lawrence
yeah, the one with
series.
like Rachel Zegler wasn't actually that bad.
That's pretty
No.
good.
That was pretty good. So, Jay, same drill.
Letterboxd J Ledbetter, Twitter at Mr. J Ledbetter, writing on awardswatch.com. My recommendation for the week, how about this? How about a YouTube channel?
All right.
So there's this YouTube channel. I've been mainlining their videos recently. There's this musician by the name of Pat Finnerty who has a YouTube channel called What Makes This Song Stink,
Oh,
in which he talks about songs that he thinks stink. And he comes at it from certainly a particular angle of meanness, but also a desire to sort of deconstruct what the badness of that song means to the greater sensibility of himself as well as the world through very comedic means. They are incredibly funny, and they will also educate and enlighten, and it's just a great way to spend a little bit of time. I would say the masterpiece video is his video on the song Beverly Hills by Weezer, in which he
that's great.
tries to grapple with his old, like the first band that he loved growing up was Weezer, and then what Weezer eventually turned into, and then his entire, like, he was just trying to contextualize his whole relationship with Weezer. It's a great video, great YouTube channel. Doesn't come out with videos all that often. It's not like his number one priority, but when inspiration strikes, he's like, I gotta make a video about this horrible song. So go check those out if you haven't watched them before.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find on my work here at awardswatch.com. If you like podcasts, we have the main show that's released on Mondays, because this one's released on Thursdays. iTunes, Spotify, 5-star reviews. We greatly appreciate it. While you're over on the website, please sign up for the newsletter. It's the best place to get all of our news, reviews, interviews, and podcasts all in one place. Recommendation of the week at the time recording, go see or watch or rent, or however, if it's still in theaters, go see Ryan Coogler's Sinners, a movie that is bold, original. It's the kind of films that I think somebody like Peter Jackson would really appreciate. A lot of filmmakers would appreciate a big original swing that lands a lot of punches. It's very interesting. I know that a lot of people are like have talked about its box office, and that it's like going to project very high for, or low for original films since like Nope. Actually, I think it has a lot to say in terms of like how Peele makes films and what in commentaries and on just not just the state of cinema, but also race and culture and music and all these different things kind of flowing through it. Coogler talked about recently that this feels like his first film since Fruitvale Station.
Okay.
That he wasn't like actually in that part of a machine or like a collaborative process like this. He could fully make this movie. It's a big risk. I hope he makes some billion more of these things, because I think it's pretty great. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece. I know a lot of people are doing that right now. I think that's a little bit of we haven't seen a good movie in a couple of weeks and people need to see a good movie and they throw that word around a little bit.
Tough start to 2025.
A little bit tough, but I think it's going to be,
good.
I think it's going to be good once we get in the back half of the year. And, but it's definitely one of the more original, unique films you're going to see. And, yeah, Coogler, he's got the goods, guys. Whatever happens with this at the box office, he's got the goods. So we will be back next week. We will be talking about The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I'm so excited to talk and continue talking Lord of the Rings the next couple of weeks with Jay and our next guest, which will be the great Sophia Simonello. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Cody, again, and we will see you all next time.